Almost 20 years to the day of the release date of this episode, a movie was released that I didn't know it at the time, but it would change my life forever. This is a movie that we're covering today here in the Boob Tube Boys that we have all seen at great length. Right, guys?
You must be kidding, aren't you?
Oh, hi.
I'm Brian.
I'm Van.
They're here with me today to talk about The Room, which, as I alluded to, was released almost exactly 20 years ago.
That's fascinating. Do you have the date?
June.
So it was June something. Okay.
Yeah,
so
so we're going
really
to get it out almost
20 years.
exactly there. Did you guys hear about this remake they're planning next month
Next month is when that's
with Bob
happening?
Odenkirk playing?
Yeah. Boy, I don't know how I feel about that.
Yeah,
'Cause
it's going to be
I love
interesting.
Bob Odenkirk. I love The Room, but I also feel like you just need to leave it alone.
So
It is what it is.
it is apparently a one-day shoot and for charity. So
Oh,
I
okay.
don't think it's going to be a very elaborate.
It's not
remake.
a
No, it's just
theatrical
a
release.
No.
digital release.
Okay.
Like they're not going to do anything crazy with
That's
it,
fine.
but it's interesting. I didn't know until I was looking into this movie for this podcast.
I mean,
So,
I'll be watching it.
before I get into what The Room is and what it's about, which is very hard
Yeah,
to get
you can
into,
try.
before I do that, oh, by the way, I should have said, we're not technically the Boob Tube Boys
Oh, yeah.
this week or last week or the week before, or for a little bit. We're the motion picture men
We're
for
almost
now.
halfway through.
Yeah, about exactly. I've tried to mention it when we did the teaser last week. This is a film that has a lot of history for us. Van, you found it somehow and brought it to us. Tell us a little bit about your backstory with this movie.
Here's what I remember initially about it is that I saw that Riff Tracks, aka the guys who were used to be of Mystery Science Theater 3000, were going to cover The Room, and it was going to be a big epic deal. And I'm like, what the hell is The Room? So then I just kind of started researching it, and that's when I learned it's some bizarre, horrible movie that is worth seeing if you like bad movies. I love bad movies, so of course I wanted to see it. And I can pinpoint that this was the year 2009 because that is when the Riff Tracks released. And it was before it released that version that I had seen it. I found a copy, I ordered a DVD, and I ended up watching it at this girl's house who I was trying to sleep with. I was so blown away by The Room that I lost track
I
of
was
even
going to
attempting
say
to sleep with
that
the
probably
girl.
changed your motivations for the night right there.
You did fall in love that night, though.
I did, in fact. And I don't believe she slept with me. I don't think it worked out. I don't think she saw The Room and went, I'm kind of in the mood.
You didn't have enough candles.
Well, anyway, watch that, watch The Room, and then I don't remember when
It was 2013.
2013, so it was 4 years
Yeah.
later. I remember I was coming over to watch movies with you guys,
And
particularly.
you brought a bunch.
Yeah, we did bring a bunch. It was you and Brian's sister, Mandy. Brian was at work or something or other. Anyway, Brian comes through halfway through us watching it. We're loving it, and I'm sure he'll talk a little bit more about that.
Oh, I will.
But that night started the whole thing. And since then, the three of us, plus Mandy, have probably seen The Room over 100 times.
If you guys had to ballpark individually, not as a group or whatever, how many times you've seen The Room, just guess.
Well, the joke was that I'd seen it 50 times, and that
Before.
wasn't really a joke. That was pretty much
And that's
realistically
before you started with us.
correct. So I think it's at least 75.
I know my number.
Do you?
I
Exactly.
think. I can pinpoint it pretty close because I've tabulated every movie I've watched since 2016. And I can kind of guess about 20 from 2013 to 2016.
So about 10 years.
That's what I'm guessing, which brings me to 38 times.
Damn.
That
if
is
that
amazing.
if that is completely accurate. But I believe it to be. I'll piggyback off what you guys were saying. I walked in on Van Spencer and AKJ 519 watching this bad boy, took one look at Tommy Wiseau and was transfixed. I could not take my eyes from the screen. I knew within seconds. We talked with Bullets and Champagne about when the shimmy slide kicks in, you know it's an all-time classic. The second I saw a frame of The Room, I knew it. I knew it spoke to my heart. And I sat down and I was in it the rest of the way. And I bet you in the next month, we watched it a handful of times.
Yeah, at least. At the immediate aftermath of experiencing that as a group, we could not stop watching it. It was pretty much every time we saw each other for months. It was like, all right, let's put The Room on.
Yeah, it was just a social activity we would do. The Disaster Artist came out shortly thereafter the book. We all read that. The movie came out years later. Saw that. Van and I met Greg Sestero
We sure
Yeah,
did.
that's amazing
at
that you guys got to do
a
that.
book signing / Q&A event.
It is very difficult for me to sum up what The Room is from our perspective. I'm going to start with, okay, and if you are listening to this and you don't, for some reason, know anything about The Room, Here is the clean version of what it is, straight off the Wikipedia page.
And it's not clean. Let's be upfront about that.
Filthy.
As clean as you can make it. The Room is a 2003 American independent romantic drama film.
I'm with you so far.
Tommy Wiseau might disagree since he's, in hindsight, edited it to be a black comedy or whatever, but written, produced, executive produced, and directed by Tommy Wiseau, who stars in the film alongside Juliette Danielle and Greg Sestero, who Van and Brian were just talking about meeting personally. Set in San Francisco, the film is centered around a melodramatic love triangle between amiable banker Johnny, his deceptive fiancée Lisa, and his conflicted best friend Mark. A significant portion of the film is dedicated to a series of unrelated subplots, most of which involve at least one supporting character and are left unresolved due to the film's inconsistent narrative structure.
Most of which, because sometimes there's characters you've never seen before, and you're 58 minutes in the movie, and they're important characters. Happens all the time.
Yeah, I'm glad you're doing this, Spencer, because this takes away the groundwork we'd have to do to say, like, this technically is a movie with the plot.
What it thought it was doing.
Because when we describe it, you'll swear it doesn't have one.
I don't think it does even now, but...
Well, and comparably to the last couple of weeks with Champagne and Bullets, which is very clearly a movie that has far less money than this one, it does have a story, at least, whereas this, I guess, has
a bunch
of
mishmashed scenes that sometimes don't fit, and sometimes you can see what they're trying to do, but it is you can kind of leave this movie not knowing what the overall product was.
The Room, scene to scene, is like a map of trails, and you go down each trail thinking, like, this maybe is leading somewhere. 9 out of 10 times, it is not.
I'll tell you what it is. It's one of those choose your own adventure books that you read front to back. You're not going to skipping to the right page.
And you
it's
didn't
page 1, 2, 3,
truly choose any of it.
No.
The neutral perspective that we just read is the best kind of general summary I can give of The Room. It's impossible to say what exactly Tommy Wiseau, who did write the screenplay, I believe he tried to make it a book first, and it was like 500 pages.
A play, yeah.
A play, and I think he did do a full book, too. Like, he actually worked with the source material somehow and made it 500 pages. He tried to do a bunch of stuff with it, and nothing worked, so he decided to make it a movie. He tried to get, I think it was Paramount, to sign off on it after they finished filming it, and they immediately rejected it. I know they supposedly normally take a couple of weeks to look at a film before they decide if they want to be involved with it, and they gave him a response in like 24 hours and said, no, that we're not going to have anything to do with
By
this.
this point, he was also already sort of LA niche famous because of he took out a very expensive billboard and put The Room on it, like the Room's poster.
Which was like their entire marketing for the movie, too, because they couldn't get anyone to say, hey, see this movie, it's great.
Tommy Wiseau also kept paying for that billboard, which is extremely expensive for like 5 years.
Yeah,
wow.
$5,000 a month for that billboard.
I should also mention, if you're not familiar with Tommy Wiseau's face that was on this billboard, he looks kind of a little bit vampiric. And in this picture, he is doing a bit of a duck face.
He's got the kind of the crinkled eye thing going on.
Yes.
And I know they had actual artwork made up that could have advertised the movie, and Tommy wanted that. He was like, let's use this picture.
This was mysterious. A headshot he had that he felt looked mysterious. And according to Greg Sestero in the Disaster Artist book, which I reread recently, Tommy Wiseau felt that the duck face made him look younger and not more like a monster man.
I know that Tommy Wiseau's budget for the film was $6 million, of which, of course, he personally covered. This is not like any studio was involved with it or anything. He had the funds from some undisclosed income
Street
source.
Fashions USA.
That no one can really verify. There's no way to verify it. And he also inefficiently spent that money throughout the production process of the film, correct? Like, he bought 2 different kinds of filming technologies, right?
He had 2 cameras. He had like an HD camera and then a much more lower quality panoramic camera.
I believe he had like 35 millimeter film.
That may have been what the second one was.
On top of HD, which was pretty new at the time. And he was wanting to be, basically, when he went to Burns and Sawyer, the production studio, to rent the equipment, was what they thought. He was looking at options and was like, hey, has anyone ever done this? And the employees were like, no one's ever shot an HD and film. There would be no point. And he said, I'll do it. And I'd also like to just buy all of the equipment, not rent it. which no one does because the technology improves so quickly it's outdated and not worth anything so like immediately.
Exactly. And then the other thing too is he would take scenes on one camera, for example, HD camera, and then transition to another scene from the 35 millimeter camera that are very painfully different to look at. And that's why sometimes you'll be watching the movie and it's crystal clear 1 second and then fuzzy as hell the next, because he's using two different cameras interchangeably that aren't interchangeable.
Another big waste of money that Tommy Wiseau would do is if they had a set built, he would not shoot all of the scenes on that set necessarily. A couple of times he had a set built, then had it torn down to shoot something else, and then had it built again.
And this was all just filmed on a soundstage, right? A studio?
Yeah.
Okay.
If you're completely unfamiliar with this movie and you're trying to understand what kind of person Tommy Wiseau is, he's got a undisclosed origin, background story. No one really knows anything about the guy or how he has all this money, and he doesn't know anything about making movies, but he's also determined to be the main guy on all of the decisions that go into the entire process. He wants all the big roles, knows nothing about any of it, and actually had some qualified people working with him initially on this project to where there could have been some competency in parts of it. Over the course of the filming, he probably got rid of everyone.
Yeah, he alienated everyone horribly.
Burned a lot of bridges.
And he went through a lot of cast members too. I know that he had completely different people picked out for lots of the parts and kind of had to about face at the end change his mind. I know he did not actually mean to cast Lisa. That was she was supposed to play, I think, the role of Michelle or something else. And that didn't work out. The person who was supposed to play Lisa was supposed to be closer to his age, and that didn't work out. He just didn't like her. Didn't like a lot of the people that auditioned for the parts and went through so many cast members. He hired just on their headshots. Didn't really know anything about them, so he's very cantankerous, difficult to work with, and often had conflicts with these people and went through everything. Most of the set had changed and hated him by the end of this movie process. So it was a bizarre undertaking. I think really it would be unlike anything in film history. So when I say that it changed my life upon seeing it, although I didn't know it in 2003, of course, I think The Room is unlike anything in all of film history for anyone. I think it's not just me that it changed my life. It really changed entire film history.
I agree.
Unlike anything.
I've seen this movie more times than I've seen any other movie as an adult. I enjoy watching it as much as I enjoy watching any other movie. And that's without any sort of weird hyperbole. Now, the reasons for it, I don't know. I don't quite understand it. It's just like an uncanny valley experience that I'm telling you. The only reason anyone wouldn't respond to The Room as a truly great bad movie is if they had just had fatigue from hearing about it. Because it is very ubiquitous in the bad movie community, to the point where, Van, you said, like, Reddit won't let you even post about it in the bad movie Reddit.
Yeah, it's banned from discussion for posts. What I'll say is, to find The Room, to find a scenario where The Room happens, the right director, well, everything, guy, and then the cast that fills in the holes around them, is a once-in-a-lifetime thing and something you can't replicate. Because if you try to replicate it, you can say, all right, we need a guy like Tommy Wiseau who believes they can do anything and is the expert in anything. And then he needs a lot of money. So there's another facet to that. Then he needs this. Just you can put someone in that shape, but then you know what happens? Champagne and bullets, which is somewhat more competent. And John DeHart's a piece of crap that we know of from that movie, but he's competent in several ways that Tommy Wiseau is not. So that's why it's so hard to make The Room again.
John DeHart would allow professional actors to ad-lib off of his dialogue.
Yeah.
So Wings Hauser makes scenes entertaining that would not be otherwise. Tommy Wiseau made everyone strictly adhere to his written dialogue.
And he doesn't read English.
He has a very loose grasp on the English language. And like, not to let these other actors experience this and kind of have a hand in it was a big mistake, although for our purposes, it was not a big mistake. Actually, it was the best decision possible.
No, you put it very well, Van, in that you might be able to recreate one of these things Tommy Wiseau brings to the table, but you can't check all those boxes ever again. It's not possible. There's too much that had to happen, lightning in a bottle.
It's like an extinction event. Like, this just does not happen all the time.
It really is.
I'll give you another one. Birdemic, who's made by a guy named James Nguyen, who is Vietnamese, I believe, and is not a native English speaker, much like Tommy Wiseau is not. And yet his is competent, that's a strong word, dialogue. It's words are put in the right place. We'll say that to an extent.
It sounds like traditional American English.
Yes, because he, again, relied somewhat on the performances of his, air quotes, actors, because that's full of non-actors too. But I don't know, it's just such a hard concept to coalesce together.
If you had to describe Tommy Wiseau to somebody who's like, I haven't seen The Room, like what's going on there? Who's Tommy Wiseau?
I'll go first.
I want to say,
Okay,
man,
you go first.
No, very brief. Man with a vision?
Okay, you're talking theoretical Tommy Wiseau. Yes, I agree with that. Physical Tommy Wiseau.
Oh, yeah, no, that's fine, too. You can do
Okay.
that.
I want to say that. That would be if Encino Man kept going.
I'll go with passionate auteur from a different realm.
He's very confident in his ideas, even though his ideas are completely batshit.
Oh, the bank put him
This
into
is a
practice.
man who wears two belts at the same time.
You really have just got to see it to even believe it's real. It's not possible. This whole movie is an alien experience, and even serious film critics who watched it came away saying that. Like, you can't experience this film without being like, I don't feel like a human being made this.
I'll tell you how amazing it is. Lots of brilliant people, smart, funny, great people, think it's the funniest thing in the world. Bob Odenkirk, for example.
Yeah.
Guys like that love
People
The Room.
in film, like actual actors, love The Room.
I have introduced The Room to more people than there's no other movie that I do this with where I'm like, you have to see this once I become somewhat close with someone. And I'm telling you right now, whether they are bad movie people or not, the response is always there for The Room, more than any other bad movie that I've shown friends I've met. Everyone laughs at this thing. You can't look at it and not be confused to a degree of laughter, almost to mania, the first time you see it.
Now that we've done the best we can at kind of going over the foundation of what The Room is, this 2003 masterpiece.
Oh, it's fun even reminiscing about it.
And it was long overdue that we got a chance to do this because we've seen the movie 1,000 times together, but we've never had an official discussion about it. Now we get to.
We even had an official discussion about Champagne and Bullets.
Exactly.
And not The Room?
Although not that version of
Right.
Champagne and Bullets.
Not the dirty one.
Not the fucked up
We
version.
did the Disney version, right? Is that what he called it?
Yeah.
So the cast, very quickly, you'll notice that apart from the names you just heard us say, you don't know these names. And there's a reason for that. We start with Tommy Wiseau, who is, of course, the master behind all of this. He's Johnny, a successful banker who is engaged to Lisa.
Wait, shouldn't he be named Peter, P-E-T-R, or something like that?
Juliet Danielle as Lisa, Johnny's fiance, who engages in an affair with Mark.
Too many first names.
And then Greg Sestero, the great Greg Sestero, as Mark, Johnny's best friend.
Retro Puppet Master's own Greg Sestero.
Who is having an affair with Lisa. And then Philip Haldeman as Denny. This is a wiki description here. A young college student who is financially and emotionally supported by Johnny.
As we talk about this, if you've not seen The Room, you're going to be really wondering what the deal with Denny is.
That's a natural thing to ask.
I still do wonder what the deal is.
It's like that trailer that you found, Van, where they recut it like a horror movie and
yeah.
they've got Claudette saying, tell me,
Wonderful.
what does Denny do? Speaking of Claudette, that's Carolyn Minot. I don't know what that is. She is Lisa's mother. We will see a lot of Claudette. She is a joy, a true joy in this film. Robin Paris as Michelle, Lisa's best friend and personal advisor, according to this wiki description. She does give her a lot of advice in this movie. And then we've got Scott Holmes as chocolate-eating Mike, Michelle's boyfriend.
Fun fact about him is he is one of the few cast members who, he doesn't hate his performance in The Room. He should. But he doesn't like openly share that with people. He kind of hides from it still. Whereas like Juliet Danielle and Robin Paris,
Right.
they love it. They
Well,
enjoy it.
They weren't getting Nestle BJs.
Well, they didn't have that face
Right. Or that hair.
or that shape.
And the little monologue, Me Underwears, he really got into that. His one little moment to shine in the movie. He really tried.
And also, I have this in my notes later. I'm going to say it now. Typically, real movies don't use the word They cut those out. Because
You get a
they're
couple
wording
in
lines.
for like realism,
But,
but
like-
you don't have every single natural one in the movie.
Exactly. You have the ones that are okay to flow with, like you might a podcast, but you don't go, me, underwears,
It almost
and Mike
sounds-
does it all the time.
Sounds like maybe the guy's not confident in his lines.
Huh.
Perhaps.
Another thing about movies is usually some of it gets cut. With The Room, 11 total minutes were cut
That's it.
from the entirety of filming, and half of it's more sex scenes.
Oh, God. I can't wait till we talk about those. And we've got the superstar who we'll be talking about a great deal of later when his
A
scene
great
comes up.
deal. Sorry,
which
it's
is-
just going to be happening all night.
That's fine. Dan Jig, how do you say that?
Janjigian? Janjigian?
Jen Jigian's probably as good as anything. Who was friends with them from the film? Someone knew
Was it
this guy. It was
Greg
someone's.
Sestero?
It might have been Greg.
It wasn't him.
It was someone that was associated with the movie.
Might have been just like a producer.
Might have
or a
been
line
somebody
guy.
just knew this guy and was like, "Do you want? I have a friend who's got a roommate who would love to play this role for
He's
this Chris R guy."
Real big and kind of muscly.
Yeah.
He'll do a good
Like,
job.
yeah, you need a drug dealer, gangster, vampire mix. This guy is perfect for playing that. And they brought him on, and he turned out to be by far the best actor in the movie.
Mwah.
His character is Chris-R, a drug
What's
dealer.
his last name?
We don't know.
Exactly.
Well,
it's Chris fucking -R.
We don't know any of these people's last names. This is as close to a last name as we get.
That is true. Chris-R is a drug dealer who threatens Danny. And I should say, Tommy Wiseau, when he was coming up with the character sketch for Chris-R, wrote a little sentence about him that he was maybe a vampire as possible. And when somebody asked him, like, can you tell me a little bit more about Chris R? And he's like, he's gangster, was his only reply.
Also, that was one of the vampire angle was one of the ways he attempted to get Dan, what's his?
Dan
sorry?
Janjigian.
Yeah, he tried to get Dan to come back for another day of shooting, and one of the ways to do that, he was like, maybe he's vampire.
That's a selling point for me
Chris
and you.
R?
I don't know for him.
Almost lastly, Kyle Vogt is Peter, a psychologist and friend of Mark and Johnny, who, of course, left the film before they were done shooting his character scenes.
He had a commitment.
A real acting job of, I don't know how real, but more real than this.
Based on, and I did not check any of their IMDb's because why, but Kyle Vogt, based on this, I don't see how much, I know they say he had a real career, but I don't see how.
Well, to be fair for poor Kyle Vogt here is he banged his head during filming and maybe actually did have a concussion during all of his scenes.
That would
Johnny wouldn't
explain
let
it.
him leave. He wouldn't, let him
he
leave
wouldn't
the
allow
set.
him go to the hospital, which is maybe an issue. Now, Carolyn Minogue had a heat stroke, I believe, and did go to the hospital, thankfully.
Well, this one's because Tommy Wiseau wouldn't pay for air conditioning.
In the summer in Los Angeles.
Yeah. So after this happens, though, we finally bought air conditioners, apparently. How can you spend $6 million and be cheap? I don't get it.
Yeah. He only wanted to spend the money on things that were like vanity items for himself and his film project.
Butt powder.
Butt powder.
The reason I say Kyle Vogt was the second to last is when he left the show and could not finish filming the really just one last part with his character, they brought on Greg Ellery to play a character who in the credits is referred to as Steven. In the movie, he is referred to as nothing or introduced as anything at all and is really just kind of other Peter. In terms of the film's continuity, Steven is other Peter, and they never really say that he's anyone but Peter.
He appears to take Peter's place late in the film as sort of like, this is another long-term friend that kind of fills that void. Now,
So you're just supposed to know they all know.
Now, Spencer, you said Kyle Vogt was a poor actor.
I know where you're going to go with this.
Greg Ellery, is that his name?
Greg Ellery.
Greg Ellery. Van, we'll throw this one to you. What kind of actor would you say that Greg Ellery is?
I did the word association. First thing that popped in my head, and it was potato.
Well, I thought not one. So, yeah.
Okay, so about the same.
Yeah, I forget the exact reason why he even auditioned. It was another sort of roped into it thing. He wasn't actually an actor.
And didn't he have like a motorcycle
Yes.
and was like a lunatic?
Yeah, he rode a bike in there. I don't think this pink pirate shirt thing was his that he wears in the movie. But yeah, he was apparently a very strange man who they got solely because Tommy Wiseau made no alternate arrangements for Kyle Vogt telling him at the beginning of shooting when he would have to rap by. So they just had to pick a guy, and they picked the worst actor in the history of film.
I warned you guys I was going to make you pick, and I figured you would both say, because this is a movie of horrendous acting.
Yeah.
Are we all saying Steven's the worst?
Yes, I am.
I'm going to differ just for the sake of differing
Okay.
and say Mike. I think Mike is really bad.
It's so hard because they're all so bad.
I
We're
think
all right.
Mike is more viable because the idea of Mike's character is he's supposed to provide comedic relief.
Is it? Is that the idea?
Oh, yeah,
You'd
you get
have-
the whimsical music when he and Michelle first enter with their box of chocolate. You know, like that whole scene was, I guess Tommy Wiseau was writing the script and thinking, I need to interject some kind of funny here. And that's who we came up with, is fucking Mike.
And he thought that when he finished this, he told Greg Sestero, who he knew as a friend at the time, this is going to change you, man. You're going to cry. You're going to laugh. That's life.
You're thinking about this wrong. His writing process, by the way, Spencer, was not like you're saying. He wasn't just going through the story, adding characters. He had a list of characters. He had drawn maps. He fucking George R.R. Martin this, and still this is what we got out of it.
He did a lot of pull-ups during it, during his writing process.
What do you think he did every time he wrote down a line he thought was funny? Like the actual guy himself, Tommy Wiseau. That exact thing.
I think he also had to get up and run and tell someone. The nearest
Yeah.
person be like, look what I'm so funny.
Call one of the mystery friends that he had on the phone at like 3 a.m., which is a thing that Tommy Wiseau did.
I will attempt to unfurl this monstrosity, this horrendous thing that is, I guess, a movie plot. So you podcast listeners remember how this episode opened with a swirling fanfare. Describe the room sound, the main theme.
Yeah,
soundtrack
Van,
for the
describe
room.
it by playing it again.
I actually feel when I hear that, like if you took that out of context, that almost to me sounds like it's supposed to be the soundtrack for some kind of really old, like I'm talking 70s or 80s era, like British murder show or something.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it's something sophisticated when you hear that. It sounds so proper and it's got like a little bit of a whirling style to it. It sounds too sophisticated.
Similarly, I think like Renaissance fair music
Yeah.
almost.
Okay. Yeah, I could see it underlying an episode of Poirot or something like that.
They use a lot of filler scenes of San Francisco throughout this movie. Sometimes,
No way. This
sometimes,
place in San Francisco?
I didn't have that.
Shit.
sometimes they use the filler in the middle of a scene, which we'll get to later, especially in that last party scene where they cut several times from a scene that's not over, which is just bizarre.
Well, because Tommy Wiseau took one look at this movie once it was shot and thought, this should be longer.
So there's a bunch of stock footage of San Francisco, and that is how this movie opens. I didn't write down exactly what happened. There's a cable car, right? Or is that later? There's cable cars all over this movie, and those are cool. But San Francisco, stuff happening. I think there's a boat. There's a boat.
Yeah,
in
some like ruins.
yeah.
Well, you remember, and this is the last time, I promise I'm going to bring up a champagne and bullets, but in the old other cuts of that get even the Road to Revenges, the original credit scene was just somebody driving around with word art. That's exactly what the credits are in this movie.
Yeah.
Somebody, or not even driving around, just pictures of San Francisco and word art.
Yep. With here's who's in this movie.
When we cut to the black screen with the white font saying a major character's name, it's as if this were a major studio movie. This is not really done in indie movies like this. You don't take like 1,000 title cards to get your cast and your crew, which is all Tommy Wiseau,
Right.
out of the way.
And-
Like, you just get into the movie.
Oh man, Philip Haldeman's in this. I had no idea.
Holy shit, man. I haven't seen him since Die Hard.
So yeah, that's how we open up here, where if you don't know what you're getting into, you still won't at this point. You'll have no idea. And then after all that fanfare, the random San Francisco shots, the swirling soundtrack that could be majestic in anything, we get our first look at Johnny and Lisa in the red living room where most of the movie is shot in.
This is the titular room.
Right.
Yeah.
This has to be.
It is this and the rooftop that we'll get into later, where almost every scene is.
That is, to me, the only other thing you could have called this movie is the roof.
I would accept either one.
Just change the letter.
You could argue it's hard to say. You could argue there's even more pivotal scenes in the roof. I don't know. That's for later to discuss.
That's where all the philosopher god talk happens.
And a little drama, a couple different times. There's a couple of near deaths on the roof over the course of this movie. We'll get into that later. For now, we're in the living room. It looks like a normal red room. There's spoons on the wall. It's an interesting decor. Is it modern? What would you say? It's
So-
a townhouse in San Francisco.
What it definitely really is Tommy Wiseau forgot that there should be set decoration.
Because he probably didn't decorate his own house.
Right. He actually didn't, by the way.
Okay.
He just used curtains and towels to separate things. But he essentially, realizing that not everyone hangs upside down when they sleep, he was like, hey, can someone on staff go out and buy me some like picture frames, some things to make it feel homey in the room? So they did. And rather than put photos of Johnny and Lisa or other characters in the frames, he didn't forget to put the photos in the frames. He ordered his crew to leave just the stock image spoon photos that came with the frames in the frames and put them up. This was a directive, and he made it to his crew seem like a creative decision, not a lazy thing just because he was annoyed that he had to do it in the first place.
This is funny because I think now in 2023, you can have a tongue-in-cheek decorating style where you do that. You leave the cane with the family people in the frames, and someone would see that and laugh and be like, haha, that wasn't a thing in 2003, certainly.
And it could be, depending on the tone of your movie, but the tone of this movie is earnest as fuck.
Dead serious.
No one here is ironic about anything.
There's no way that anyone that isn't Tommy Wiseau could ever believe that you could reverse course afterwards and be like, I meant for this to be funny when people say it is.
No character in this movie is aware that there are bad movies, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's a great way to say it. When you first meet Johnny and Lisa here, Johnny is coming home from a busy day at the bank. It's pretty early. I mean, the sun is so bright.
It's probably 3 p.m.
It looks like it's probably in the afternoon, but I think it's supposed to be like 7 or something.
More on this later. We're going to determine Johnny's work schedule as we go along.
And that's not possible, but it's basically supposed to be early evening. Lisa is in the living room doing her usual living room lurk, which is what I like to call what she does through a lot of this movie.
She kind of golems around in a corner and waits for someone to knock on the door.
Most of it, there's no evidence Lisa moves in much of this movie.
Do you think there's actually a string connected to the door to Lisa? So when someone opens it, it raises her up from her corner chair?
Like a dummy you'd set up to make it pretend you were sleeping or something or other.
So, guys, Johnny didn't and doesn't ever come home empty-handed from work. He had something for Lisa. And, well, so it's a big old present, carefully wrapped. After the pair, they have a little playful paw match with each other where Johnny won't give it to her, and Lisa really wants it. She finally wrestles it away from him, opens it to discover a red dress.
Aw.
She says it's beautiful, and she asks, hey, can I try it on? And he says, sure, it's yours.
He kind of slurs the words out.
Oh, most of the movie. And here
That's sort of his thing. Even when he recorded the dialogue after the fact, it still comes out mumbled.
I love that he wrote all the dialogue and couldn't even read it enough to where they did not have to make him dub in a large portion of it after the filming of his own movie.
The other non-aspiring actors on the cast that just kind of came in to do lines, they remembered their lines much easier than Tommy Wiseau did.
There's a lot that doesn't make sense here, and this is just one of many of them.
Well, let me ask this. I guess buying a dress for your significant other is romantic or sweet or whatever, but
I don't like it.
Women's clothes in particular are finicky. A 6 in this
I've
will
never
not be
even
a 6
tried.
You gotta fit right.
Yeah. So I don't know that that's a wise thing to do to buy a dress for your girlfriend. Let them pick it out.
So based on Tommy, I guess we can call him Tommy, or really, whatever. His name is Johnny, but he's Tommy Wiseau. Johnny's wardrobe in this movie, I would think that if we're going to go on his wardrobe style, his dressing style, that dress would be way too big for Lisa.
Yeah.
Because he's kind of a baggy dresser. His
One of
suits
the
are giant.
stranger things about Tommy Wiseau is because Tommy Wiseau dresses Johnny, his character, as he dresses, because he thinks it's cool, which is everything is 3 sizes too big. And what's really unusual about this is, for all of his reservations about himself, Tommy Wiseau is jacked. He is in incredibly good shape, but does not even show that off when he's dressed. He always dresses in tarps.
And of course, as Greg Sestero mentioned in The Disaster Artist, that the ripped thing just happened. He didn't normally look like that, and then for the movie, he did.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know what kind of lifestyle he took on before this filming.
Well, and the clothes, too, I'll say this about all of them, because this covers the entire movie. They're bizarre. Nothing fits anyone, and in particular, Lisa. And I think that's a big problem with making her character attractive in this movie, is that they do a bad job dressing her.
They give her clothes no one would wear.
Exactly. And it's like, she's a pretty girl. If they would let her pick her own stuff out, it would have looked better than this.
I think
Poor Juliette Danielle.
Yeah.
Greg Sestero at this time was a model professionally.
Right.
And looks like a dipshit in several scenes. There's not anyone you can make look good in these clothes.
I will say that's the one compliment I'll give Greg Sestero is his close-ups in this movie. He looks like he was born for close-ups. It's great. It's great. He's just so bad at everything.
Oh, yeah. You put that motherfucker in a Hallmark card commercial.
Yeah.
Yeah, pay him. But talking, I don't.
Yeah, he didn't need to do that. Keep your mouth shut. So the scene fades here like a bunch of time is going to pass, but really it's just Lisa trying the dress on. She comes right back down. So I don't know what the fade's for, but get used to that. She's showing it off for Johnny, who very casually and kind of lazily sits on the couch and says, "Oh, you look so sexy, Lisa." And just as they're about to just go at it right then and there, Johnny's hands are stretched out behind his head on the couch, relaxing, but he's ready to fuck. And walks Denny for the first of many times.
The imp who lives in the crawl space.
Yeah. So we talked a little bit about Denny. He's a supposedly college-aged kid who lives in the same apartment complex because of Johnny being a saint. And Johnny is trying to be sort of like a father figure to him. So Denny's always here. He's always here, and he barges in because he practically lives in the house.
He's somewhere between the ages of 14 and 30.
And admittedly, he does at least look young, like a young kid.
He looks young. Something's wrong with him.
Well, very much so. But the actor is actually older than several of the other actors.
Yeah, he was 26 at the time of filming.
That's so crazy.
His character is played in a way. How should I say this?
Yeah.
There's a developmental issue.
Oh, okay.
With the character of Denny, whether or not that was intentional.
And I think that is Tommy trying to give himself someone to make him look good. And he wrote Denny like a small child in a college student's body.
Exactly. And that's the thing is Tommy Wiseau wanted all these. He didn't strongly identify with these characters. These characters weren't coming to life for him. They're all the vehicle for his martyrdom to shine through.
Mm-hmm.
So he creates Denny, and Denny needs to be all these things at once. A son, a friend, someone who might want to have sex with Lisa. Just anything.
The point you just made with all of it being a vehicle for Tommy Wiseau and him making him a martyr is also the theme of the movie too, like the betrayal, of course, that comes. I know he said like the one line for the movie that was supposed to sum it up for people is, "Can you really trust anyone?" Which is so vague.
Yeah, it's just general. Like, okay.
But the whole concept he's trying to get at here is that he's just a great man who's perfect and everyone fucks him over because everyone's bad and he's great. And Denny is a vehicle for that, as Brian said. That's the entire purpose of him.
What was that movie where Robin Williams grows up too fast?
Jack.
Denny is Jack, but at that age thing, because his brain not as much.
I think so. And Jennifer Lopez is there as his teacher.
I forgot about that. Bill Cosby, too.
What if Jennifer Lopez had been in the room?
I mean, what if that was the original Lisa and Tommy Wiseau didn't like her? It was like, nah, let's give it
not right for the part.
I don't want her ass to outshine mine.
I feel refreshed and ready to go because we're just starting this thing. So let's take a break and come back and get right back to it.
Hi, I'm Kevin Sorbo. I am a trash human who probably eats bugs. I'm here today to introduce scenes from the 2003 black comedy The Room, as performed by the Boob Tube Boys and Friends. This is Scene 1, The Rooftop Part 1. Johnny is played by Spencer, Mark is played by Van, and narration by Brian. Enjoy.
Cut to the roof. Johnny enters mid-sentence.
I did not hit her. It's not true. It's bullshit. I did not hit her. I did not.
He throws a water bottle to the floor.
Oh, hi, Mark.
Oh, hey, Johnny. What's up?
I have a problem with Lisa. She says that I hit her.
Johnny sits down next to Mark.
What? Well, did you?
No, it's not true. Don't even ask. What's new with you?
Well, I'm just sitting up here thinking, you know. Hey, I got a question for you.
Yeah?
You think girls like to cheat like guys do?
What makes you say that?
Mark gets up and walks to the ledge.
I don't know. I'm just thinking.
I don't have to worry about that because Lisa's loyal to me.
Yeah, man, you never know. People are very strange these days. I used to know this girl. She had a dozen guys. One of them found out about it. Beat her up so bad she ended up in a hospital on Guerrero Street.
What a story, Mark.
Yeah, you can say that again.
Johnny gets up and joins Mark at the ledge.
I'm just so happy I have you as my best friend, and I love Lisa so much.
Yeah, man. Yeah, you are very lucky.
Oh, maybe you should have a girl, Mark.
Mark walks away from Johnny, unable to look him in the eye.
Yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe I have one already. I don't know yet.
Well, what happened? Remember Betty? That's her name?
Betty?
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't really see each other anymore. You know, she wasn't any good in bed. She was beautiful, but we had too many arguments.
That's too bad. My lease is great when I can get it.
Mark sits back down in his chair, flipping the football casually in his hands.
Oh man, I just can't figure women out. Sometimes they're just too smart, sometimes they're just flat out stupid, other times they're just evil.
Johnny excitedly approaches Mark, taking a seat next to his friend.
Seems to me like you're the expert, Mark.
No, definitely not the expert, Johnny.
What's bothering you, Mark?
Mark looks at Johnny, hesitating briefly before getting up and walking away.
Nothing, man.
Johnny leaps up and approaches Mark, taking the football from his hands. Do you have some secrets? Why don't you tell me?
Forget it. Forget it, dude.
Is there some secret? Tell me.
No, forget it. I'll talk to you later.
Mark passes Denny as he exits the roof, his friend Johnny remaining behind.
The Denny immediately comments on Lisa's hot dress and asks how much it costs.
A question no one would ask.
She reprimands him for that. She's like, Danny, don't ask a question like that. Anyway, now that you're here, Johnny and I are going to go upstairs and take a nap.
Which is to have afternoon dress sex.
Do you think that was the intention? Or do you think Tommy Wiseau / Johnny was like, yeah, no, people take naps. That's what he wanted. And it evolved.
I don't know. And this whole scene confuses me. And the way it ends that we'll get to later doesn't clear any of it up. And I'll try to get into the time frame when we're done with it. But I don't know what time it is right now. I don't know if it's evening enough to where you wouldn't nap because it's about time to go to bed, which they do soon, or what is
this
happening?
Is an intentional fuck act because when they're walking up the stairs, the chatter dialogue is all about how he wants to get that dress off.
Exactly. Yeah. And Denny has not caught on to this at all. He's thinking, I want to come with you guys when you go upstairs.
He does want to do that. Yes.
So the stairs, by the way, let's talk about this now. It's a spiral staircase kind of in the middle of the room. Every single time we get a scene, honestly, with anyone, but especially with Tommy Wiseau going up them, it's weird every time.
Well, they're a hazard, especially if you've had 14 Red Bulls and haven't slept in weeks.
The staircase is too narrow, too. I get uncomfortable watching people walk on it.
So my cousin had a spiral staircase in one of the apartments that he had.
What apartment? Spiral staircase? Mm-hmm. Those don't gel. How did that happen?
It's so weird. Yeah, and it's a lot like that. It's like they wanted to put a loft in his place. It's a nice apartment, so they wanted extra space. There wasn't room for it. So they just shoved a spiral staircase in his apartment, and it led up to the loft, but you couldn't really get on the stairs smoothly. There was no way to do it. So that's kind of how I feel every time I see them in this townhouse doing that.
Stairs aren't a thing you should be going for just the aesthetic value.
I don't like the concept of a spiral staircase. I don't like the idea of going up and having to spin in circles as you do it. It just doesn't sound right.
I'm so bad at going upstairs as it is, clumsy enough. You don't need to make it twisty.
Getting from low to high isn't a thing we need to fancy up.
So yeah, that makes this scene all that much weirder, how when Johnny and Lisa are going upstairs to fuck, it just looks weird right from the get-go.
At one point, while walking up the stairs, Johnny says, "You're in for it." And Lisa says, "Oh yeah."
I'm going to read the whole thing.
Okay.
Because this is actual dialogue from this movie. Lisa, I've got some candles upstairs. Johnny, you always think. All right, I'm ready. Lisa, this is so great. I can't wait for you to get it off of me. Johnny, oh yeah. Lisa, you're in for it. Johnny, oh yeah. Lisa, how much did you pay for this dress? Johnny, don't even ask. Mumble, mumble, mumble. Actual dialogue.
Everyone wants to know the price tag on this thing.
It's hot, too. It's really setting the scene for what's going to happen. I'm pretty turned on. By the way, this is all happening. And as I mentioned, Denny has no clue. He's a college-age kid who doesn't realize that this couple wants to fuck. So he just goes ahead, bites into an apple, and follows them up the stairs.
The apple was an intentional thing from Tommy Wiseau to make the scene more sensual. To have Denny bite an apple.
Sure did. Mm-hmm.
Okay, and in Denny's defense, I know that he's too old. He's too old to deny knowing anything about sex. But what he's seeing is a 75-year-old, perhaps eternal man and a 22-year-old woman.
I think it's more morbid curiosity. You're right. It's not that he's focused on, I need to get to the sex or anything like that. It's, what is happening.
Yeah,
Is he
I
going
want
eat
to
her?
see if the Maker drains the life force.
Correct.
Yeah, he's very innocent in doing it. It's not, despite his character being creepy in many ways, and you can tell he's not going up there to watch him fuck. He actually just wants to play with them in the way that a child likes to play
You
with
say
adults.
innocent. I don't think anyone who can eat an entire apple, including the core, is innocent, because that's what he does. By the time he gets upstairs, the
gone.
apple's
No
gone.
apple. No apple anywhere. Upstairs, Johnny and Lisa are in bed together, but they're not doing what you think just yet. They're actually having a playful pillow fight, and this is a perfect opportunity for Danny to jump on in there and join.
This isn't a bed people have either.
Oh, it's a canopy bed.
Yeah, it has
So
like gauze strung
yeah.
from the top to the bottom. It's like something Cleopatra had whenever we covered Xena.
Mhm.
Or, yeah, Xena.
It was Xena, yeah. But look, the most important part of all of this, got to have the foreplay. The anticipation is great. I commend them for what they're doing with their pillow fights.
So you think the pillow is part of the intimacy?
You
I think
can't
hot.
even get me halfway ready unless I have the following items.
Uh-huh.
Pillows.
Okay.
Candles.
Yep.
Roses.
Apples.
Laughing. Just a shitload of laughing.
Red dress.
Red dress. Denny.
That's very specific and interesting. It's all in this scene.
It's very difficult for me to get off, okay?
Yeah, okay. So maybe this movie changed my sexuality. I'm room sexual now.
For a little while, this is great fun for all three. You know, they get Denny in bed and they wrestle with him. They beat him with the pillow a little.
I'll give you a pile driver, Denny.
It's just an adorable little fun bonding moment for all of them. And then Johnny, like Van, is getting worked up from his pillow action and tries to get rid of Denny. Says, Denny, don't you have anywhere to be or anything to do?
He should not have asked it that way.
Then he says this.
I just like to watch you guys.
Johnny says, 2's great, Denny. 3's a crowd.
Spencer, you think this is innocent?
I think Denny is just too dumb to know any better.
I want to know what goes where.
I mean, he just straight up admitted it. I like to watch. And this is 2003. It's harder to find
He
porno.
doesn't mean the sex. He just means he likes to watch them have their little pillow fight.
Which is just as creepy.
Yeah, no, it's all
like
creepy.
how he likes to watch the antelopes have sex on Marty Stauffer's Wild America.
Denny is a creepy character. There's no way around it. Just not really in the way that normal people are creepy. So Denny gets a little bit pissy at this point. He's like, fine, no one wants me. I have homework anyway. I'm a college student. 5 minutes into the movie now, guys. We're 5 minutes in, and it's already fuck time.
The squealing guitar does portend the type of sex you're about to see.
And if I didn't know at this point, if I'm seeing this movie the first time, I would think I've stumbled on to some sort of like Croatian softcore movie.
Yeah, I did my best. You guys can chip in with your descriptions. I did my best to kind of succinctly summarize this sex scene, which is almost 5 minutes long. And it's got the smooth R&B in the background.
I will stand in the way of a bullet.
That's exactly it. And I say, Johnny and Lisa start going at it, awkwardly rubbing on each other and slowly undressing. Lisa rubs a rose on Johnny's chest. Johnny rubs a hand through his hair. Water trickles down a window. Johnny tries to feed Lisa the rose and then pulls it apart piece by piece into her face. Johnny mounts Lisa and furiously grinds her belly button for a while. By the time the lovers are fully spent and Lisa happily settles in Johnny's arms, a full 4 minutes have passed in the film.
Oh, you did a great job.
Yeah.
What else did you guys remember from this thing?
2 things. Number 1, Tommy Wiseau in this movie, I have written in my notes, is both ripped and soggy. I don't know how to describe the second half
I had
of that.
paper mache.
Okay, that's good too. It's soggy too. You know, wet paper. Okay.
Yeah.
I suspect that's
Kind of
gotta,
corrugated.
that's got to be from his body rejecting the muscles he's built for
Yep.
himself in a short period of time. Like, what are you doing? You're 100 years old and you're ripped now, and I can't quite support this fully.
And then number 2, this is a legit question. At this moment in time, 2003, they're filming this, 2002, whatever. Do you think Tommy Wiseau was a virgin? And let me clarify that that's being virgin is not a negative thing. If you don't want to fuck, I don't care. Doesn't matter to me. But
He wants to.
he's
I'd like
more
to make that
incel
clear.
virgin. Yeah, well, involuntary celibate. So he might have been that. Do you think he was an incel, or just didn't know what he was doing?
No, I actually do have a hard time seeing Tommy Wiseau having a sexuality. I think he probably had some relationships, but I don't imagine he really understood any of it or is truly capable of romantic love. I just don't think so.
Yeah, I think he had. I don't
Okay.
know the nature of it.
But you just think something happened at some point.
I think something happened at some point, and I think his fixation on sex happened in this movie because early in life, the first woman, who I believe was a good deal older, that he had sex with, perhaps he began to conflate sex with love in a way that, to me, would make this movie make a little more sense.
Okay. And what I'm seeing here is the actual visuals of it. A, he's focused on himself too much. But B, the cut, the way they have the camera and everything, it's almost like if all you did was watch porn and you thought that's
Right.
what sex was.
Right. It's a showcase to show
Mhm.
off the bodies. I was going to say of the actors, but it's really just him.
Yeah.
And so much of him primping his hair in the middle of sex.
Yeah.
You don't do that?
This
on,
is a
we
lot.
all do.
There's a lot of wiping. A lot of roses and pillows wiped on one another.
Mm-hmm.
I had not noticed until I was tasked with writing that down step by step how he does break the rose into little pieces and like put it on her face.
Yeah, it's kind of horrifying. If you took it out with a different soundtrack, you'd be like, oh, hostage deal. This scene before cuts would have been 3 minutes longer, making the sex scene over 7 minutes long.
So
And
like
again, this
Champagne
is-
and Bullets.
I was going to say that would make it the new Iron Man of repulsive B-movie sex scenes.
Again, this is 5 minutes into the movie, and they were
Yeah.
trying to do that long of a sex
Yeah,
scene.
and he was talked down from including the whole sex scene. So in that one way, Tommy Wiseau showed more restraint than John DeHart, I guess.
I know Juliette Danielle, when she saw it at the premiere, was terrified
Yes.
at how long the sex scenes were. She was told that they were going to cut them down and make them more classy, I guess you would say. They did not do that.
And I'll say right now, from everything I've read on all accounts of the filming of The Room, Juliette Danielle, real trooper, went through a lot of garbage.
She put up a bunch of bullshit.
and really did it while still giving her all the whole time, whatever else the case
Very
may be.
sincere.
We all know she didn't do a fantastic job. She's not really an actress.
That's not possible in this movie.
It isn't.
anyway.
But I buy her being like an unhinged woman who's just playing with
That's-
all
yeah,
the chess
sure.
pieces.
She is having
I
a
buy it.
good time
It's
a
reading
very-
a lot of these lines.
It's a very poorly written villain, but for sure, Juliette Danielle does her best to play it. She tries really hard.
It comes across a lot like Tommy Wiseau does not in his writing does not understand women or men.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I agree with that, as Steven says later. Do you guys know how you just finished fucking your girl, your future wife, your fiance? You're exhausted. You go to sleep. You just crash, and you're out the whole night. You don't hear a thing until your 8:28 alarm clock goes off in the morning.
The following morning at 8:28, 28 minutes past the fucking hour. That enrages me.
Okay.
Enrages me, Brian.
I mentioned earlier that we needed to figure out Johnny's work schedule.
Mhm.
He works at a bank. Banks notoriously have tight scheduling hours. And that was especially true 20 years ago.
Mhm.
We didn't have these Saturday bank hours like we have today. So I contend Johnny getting up at 8:28 when he sets his alarm, he has to wear a suit to work. He has to deal with like 14 pounds of greased up black hair. He can't possibly have to work any sooner than 10. San Francisco's a big
Yeah,
city.
it would
he takes
take a
public
while.
transit too. So I'd say 10 at the earliest is when he works. The bank probably closes at 5 or something. I don't
Well-
know. This is all real dicey, Johnny's role at this bank.
I'll toss this in too because I worked at a bank for many years. And when I was a part-time teller, I worked until 7 because we had the drive-through open from 5 to 7, whereas the lobby closed at 5. So we can give him the lenience of 7.
10 to 7.
But this is a
Then-
guy making deals for the bank.
Maybe he just likes working late, Brian.
These that's true. Maybe he's a workaholic trying to get ahead.
But then again, it was very clearly not late evening by the time he got
Right.
home. So he has to take the public transit home or whatever. I see him pulling in his car several times, but he does ride, presumably, some of those cable cars or something,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah, he hangs from
Yeah, you
that.
see him on one at the beginning because I remember thinking, oh, look, they gave Dracula a cable car pass.
We're not entirely clear on what he does there and back or how long it takes, but as far as when he gets home in when this scene starts, it is very clearly not late. So he has to get off no later than like 6.
Yeah.
Right. But later on in the film, there will be contradictory evidence that I will bring up.
Maybe he just makes his own schedule and gets to do whatever he wants, and there's no holes here whatsoever in the plot.
Now, that's exactly what Tommy Wiseau was thinking when he wrote this, as someone who probably hasn't ever adhered to any sort of schedule.
Probably isn't even allowed in banks.
Whatever time Johnny's shift is, 10 to 6 with an hour lunch or whatever it is, I think he just changes it because he's so important. He got home early enough to where they shouldn't have needed an alarm to get up at 8:30 the next morning,
Oh,
is my thought.
definitely.
Like, I'm talking that's like 13 hours of sleep.
Yeah, they were
after
in
this
bed
fucking.
from daylight. So
Yes.
there's a cap on how late that could even be.
So they fucked and slept for 14 hours.
Counterpoint.
Okay.
They fucked. We had to witness 5 minutes of it.
You kept going.
Cold out of 3.5 hours of footage. So they fucked for 4 hours.
Okay.
Then went
So
to
it's like
sleep.
midnight in that case. That makes more sense.
So they need 8.5 hours to, recoup the energy from all the fucking.
Right. Johnny wakes up because his alarm at 8:28 does wake him up. Lisa is still out cold at this time, and she does not hear the alarm. So she's still not awake at this point.
Which I buy because, as you said earlier, we only see her in one little 2x2 foot area for
Right.
most of the movie.
Lisa must be activated like a sleeper agent.
She's got to take some time to move down to her living room lair that she will be in the rest of the day. Johnny gets up naked, sniffs the rose from last night's little thing they did. The last night's fun is what I wrote down. And then walks nude out of the bedroom. We do get a extended look at Johnny's ass. Why, guys? Why did they want to put his butt in there?
To sell the movie.
Oh, okay. I didn't think of that.
He's so white, he's opaque. Like he's gone too far past white. It's absurd. And I'm a white
Yeah.
person.
Yeah.
We all are.
Well, you're not undead, though.
True.
Yeah, and what Brian said is legitimately, I can't believe it either, but he legitimately wanted that scene in there because he thought it was necessary for the movie to be successful.
Get some eyeballs on that pair of buns.
Someone asked him why. You're like, do you really need to do that? And he said it wouldn't sell if
I want these stale cakes on screen, and if you can, I want you to get a little bit of my taint.
I bet he saw that one music video, that Lenny Kravitz song, which probably came out around then, where Lenny Kravitz shows his, like half a cheek. And he was like, I can do that.
He's like, I'm a lot like Lenny Kravitz, come to think of it.
So by the time he's dressed and ready to depart, Lisa is awake. And she hasn't moved out of bed, but she's awake and she's blissfully smelling that same rose that Johnny was playing with earlier.
This seems like a couple truly, well, okay. By the script and the actions taken, this is a couple in love.
Absolutely. And Lisa has been alone and is still acting that way. So
yeah,
at this point in the movie, even by herself, Lisa is putting on the act that she loves Johnny.
No one's watching her, and she's crinkling up her nose and smelling that rose.
I guess maybe she hasn't even realized how she really feels about Johnny yet.
I'll say no, because actually immediately after the coitus, she is adjusting and twisting or whatever, trying to get more comfortable.
She gives him a look.
Trying to get her fucking back into place after getting railed in the belly.
But she does. She gives him like a disgusted look, and I don't...
That might have been real.
It might have been real because she was grossed out by him, because he's also laying like a corpse would lay, like no human
and
would
still
sleep.
Kind of moaning a little bit, like, oh.
He does a lot of moaning.
He very purposefully also has the sheets positioned in a way where they're draped partially over his hip so as to show some leg. It's like what Kathleen Turner did in Romancing the Stone or something.
See? So he's got Lenny Kravitz. He's got the little Kathleen Turner in there.
All the influences.
But she gives Johnny a look. I wonder if that was the first instance of like, ugh, gross. Or she did that because she didn't know what to do.
I read that as that looked loving to me. Like, it's hard to tell with actors this bad. It's hard to tell with what her facial expression meant. But I read that as after they fucked and he was asleep, she gave him a, oh, I'm so in love with him, as she fell into his arms and they slept for 14 hours. But I would like to think that maybe there was supposed to be some reluctance or something, because it's obvious in the script's intent is that she already fucking hates Johnny. I
also noticed a flub or a goof or whatever you call them on IMDb, that I need to put on there. No point do you see a coffin descend or go back up into the wall like one of those day beds.
Mm-hmm.
We're led to believe that Tommy Wiseau just sleeps in a human bed.
And like horizontally. He's not vertically hanging upside down like Herman Munster.
All right, with Johnny gone, we get one of the room cuts that are, who knows how much time's passed. It's later in the day.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Could be a few weeks later.
Any day.
We don't know.
Any day. It's sunny and it's in the red living room and Lisa's in it. And I just described most of the movie.
What's she doing in there?
She's lurking. She's in the living room with her mother, actually, Claudette, this is our first scene with Claudette. And as I said at the outset, she is a joy every single scene she's in.
I love Claudette. She wears business suits. She has a real pile of old woman hair.
And she says in here to Lisa, this is dialogue from this movie. She says, let's go to the couch. They walk to the couch. Now we'll sit down. And what I think happened is Tommy accidentally put
The set
directions in the dialogue.
I have that same thing.
Oh, that could be.
And I think that happens multiple times in this movie where or perhaps like he was thinking like, oh, I can't seem to get across to these actors what I want. Let's have them say it in the movie.
If so, that would be an example of her making a script issue work, because I believe her when she sounds like she's trying to be kind of comforting and motherly to Lisa in those moments where she's taking the basic thoughts and she's kind of just be like, all right, let's just sit down and relax and talk. You know,
take
she does
this
it like
one
that.
beat at a time.
Right.
Let's settle down, honey. And Carolyn Minogue, it's not like she's good in this, that she has nothing to work with. And believe me, it gets way wilder. But she was in her 60s and decided to pursue, she retired from her normal day job, her regular job, and wanted to pursue this part-time for fun. She was like, I get to be in a movie. I think that's super admirable.
Yeah, that's great.
In a way, she and Tommy Wiseau were doing the same thing, like at an advanced age, pursuing acting. The difference is Tommy believed in his heart and soul he was both Quentin Tarantino and Robert De Niro.
And was in a lot of denial about his age. I always thought it would have been so much more fitting if Carolyn Minogue had been his love interest. That would be a lot closer to his age than Lisa.
Yeah, and then instead of the love interest being 22, it's like 65 with someone who's 148.
Claudette in this scene, by the way, she does immediately pick up on something being wrong with Lisa, which is
that's her baby girl. She knows.
Ever since the womb, I knew something was amiss with you.
Which is why we're saying it doesn't make sense that when she's by herself, she crinkles her nose happily over Johnny. So Claudette's picking up on this and decides to play psychologist and stage a mom intervention with Lisa.
She's not the psychologist. We have one later.
Lisa says she doesn't love Johnny anymore. She just comes right out with it and says that. She says he's just too boring.
And
I disagree. 100%.
There's so much you could knock Johnny for. Boring is not one of the things. You don't know what he's going to do, say, make you do or say.
Bring you?
Yeah, he's like a cat who's been out in the yard all night.
You guys immediately, in a sense, you jump to Johnny's defense. So does Claudette.
Well, you've known him for over 5 years. You're engaged. You said you loved him. He supports you. He provides for you. And darling, you can't support yourself. He's a wonderful man, and he loves you very much. And his position is very secure.
I had to leave that last part in because after all of this, like, but you're in love with him and he's wonderful. Plus, man, that job at the bank, holy shit, that's a hell of a position.
She just keeps going like she's reading off Johnny's D&D stats or something. This is why you should stay with him. Fuck love.
Lisa is unconvinced by that long sales pitch Claudette just gave her. And she says all of these wonderful attributes are exactly what she likes the least about Johnny, and that is why he's so boring to her. Claudette puts the pressure on and says, well, what's your plan then if you're going to leave Johnny? What are you going to do? And here is the first of many of Lisa's little sassy moments that she has, where she has to try to read into the character and take that twist the character's turning in her own life of, this is not what I want to do, and I think I should pursue my own interests even at the cost of others, which is Lisa's character in this. And she has one of her little revelations here, and she says, I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't mind living with him, with a little sassy head bob and her whole body gyrating. And Claudette says, well, that would make you awful, and you can't do that. That's not an option. Have you tried talking to Johnny about this and how you hate his guts? Lisa has not. Claudette reminds her again how great Johnny is and how much money he spent on her and how she should marry him because he's good for her.
She then prints off and provides an itemized list of the gifts that she's received from Johnny.
It's at this point, Lisa just, I think, realizes this is not a fight she can possibly win and just gives in and agrees and says, yeah, you're probably right, Mom. Claudette says, of course I'm right. I know men. And she's glad someone's listening to her since no one else does.
And here we get a good idea of why Lisa's the way she is, because Claudette makes this all about herself. But again, this is all written by Tommy Wiseau, who I don't think has talked to a woman for longer than about half an hour consecutively before.
Usually it's no longer than they can get away from him.
Right, or call the authorities or get their mace out. But he writes these characters so thin and mean and brittle, just existing all in the orbit of him, the all-caring man.
Yeah, they're all against him. I also like when Claudette's self-pitying part here where she says, I'm glad you're listening to me. No one else does. And Lisa says, you're probably right about that, Mom. She just
She's
finished
right.
telling her, you're right about Johnny, and you're right, nobody listens to you.
I wonder why.
The Claudette boops her on the nose and leaves, and that is her thing.
I think that's her thing. The actress
you
did
think
that.
she put that personal touch in there?
And then boop.
I hope so. It is memorable.
Cute.
She does it every scene.
She does. I really like how, after Claudette leaves here, Lisa gets a little sour look on her face and says, thanks, Mom, with no one around.
I put down that she rebelliously stares into space and says sarcastically to herself when her mom leaves, and her mom was, not the greatest advice, but she was trying. Thanks, Mom. Yeah, like she was being mean about it or something. And
like she's Zach on Saved by the Bell or something, and he's not allowed to go to prom.
Thought it was trying her best to be helpful there. So it is strange how Lisa's clearly got a lot of, we know not that much about Claudette. I think she's supposed to be really horrible, but Lisa does definitely have lots of issues with her mom, and they always come out after Claudette leaves. In the next scene, we quickly see Lisa put her mom's ideas into practice. She excitedly dials Mark, Johnny's best friend, and greets him with, hey, baby, how you doing? This is minutes after she said she would just go ahead and be happy with Johnny and marry him.
Right up top, that greeting, it implies there's something already exists between these two characters.
Huge problem with that scene.
Yeah, but it doesn't.
Maybe it's just a cutesy, like, hey, babe, and then
okay,
and then Greg Sestero answers the phone, and he's so well-adjusted and smart, he gets it. He understands it facetiously.
One of many moments in this movie where Mark comes across as the dumbest fucking guy that I've ever heard of in my life.
There sure are a lot.
Yeah, and he's completely clueless. Yes, as Brian said, it sounds like they've already started the affair at this point. They have not. But I guess in Lisa's head, they already have.
Yeah, and Lisa's over there in her little fucking scheming corner chair with her. It's where she keeps her phone and her personalized 8x10 of the spoon.
So it's different. It's different than her lurking lair. It's like she's got a little corner for scheming.
If she's over there and she's reaching for that early aughts cordless, something bad is going to happen.
So Mark is entirely oblivious to this overly flirtatious tone that's not even flirty. It's just a straight up, I'm hitting on you.
Like seductive.
It's like it's not even like a tone of, I wonder what she means by that. No, she's greeting him with, hey, baby, how you doing? And he's just like, oh, hey, it's good to hear from you. He's just got like a regular cheerful manner that you would expect to hear somebody who was answering the phone from a friend, particularly when the friend is your best friend's significant other. He acts like that's a normal conversation you have with that person.
And I know that Greg Sestero in The Disaster Artist maintains, he was an aspiring actor who was going out for a lot of roles at this time, which I believe it could all be verified, but you don't see any talent here. He reads his lines a lot like kind of like a foggy jock. You know what I mean? Just kind of not wholly present. And I know that this is The Room, but I feel like you'd see a little thespian shine through.
Yeah, some would come out.
Something, a little bit at all. It never does.
Well, it's like, for example, Peter, who we'll of course meet later, says some of the dumbest shit in this movie because all the characters do. But I can see that, okay, that guy's taking an acting class.
Yeah, and Chris R,
I get it.
Best actor I've ever seen.
Oh, yeah, he's
just a natural.
He might be the best in Boob Tube Boys history. We'll come to it when we get to that scene.
Another really noteworthy thing about this scene is Mark, as Brian said, sitting there clearly doing nothing and sounding like a foggy jock, takes this time to tell Lisa, I just don't really have time right now. I'm very busy. As he sits in what looks to be a parked car on his cell phone. It's not believable at all, but that is Mark's character. It's not explained what he does ever, but he is very busy.
Smokes pot, so wherever he works, doesn't drug test. We know that.
So Greg Sestero's idea for backstory.
Oh, yeah, because as an actor, you come up with your own, right?
It's not bad. Well, he actually wanted to do it to make it less embarrassing.
Oh, okay.
Like at a certain point during realizing what this was. His idea is that Mark is some sort of police officer, which is why he kind of doesn't talk about work and why he is in California when weed was already legal, very weird about it and hiding it on a rooftop in a tin.
Okay. All right. I
So,
can get behind
yeah,
this.
he and a couple other people on the crew, I guess, joint came up with this idea. Like, let's at least mention it so something makes sense. Tommy Wiseau, of course, was like, you don't step on the screenwriter's gold like that.
I will say I cannot buy Mark as a cop, though,
Yeah,
at
that's
all.
tough.
But
It's a bad idea
But
for
in
his
a movie
character.
of unbuyable information.
I think that'd be the worst. No, I wouldn't like it. Mark is not, I think he is nothing, so it's perfectly fine that he has no role. He just couldn't pull off anything to make it believable anyway. Greg Sestero is, he's not a good actor. I'll leave it at that for now.
Well, okay, let me posit this to you. You guys are looking at this the wrong way. In the world of The Room, we're going to find out in real short order that the computer business is too competitive. Well, what is the definition of competitive? There are too many people in it. Mark is in the computer business. He's competing against Lisa.
Maybe that's why
That would
Lisa
be-
chose Mark.
That'd be
Could be.
fascinating. They had like that little side hustle that they were sort of antagonistic with each other and they fell for each other in the process.
And they're both like brilliant. Like they understand how to program DOS or
Mark
whatever.
built the first IBM.
He is Mr. Intel.
Alicia immediately spills the beans about her very private conversation she just had with her mom, although not in any real specific or helpful way. She just says, my mom just gave me a big lecture about Johnny. She doesn't bother giving an introduction on why they're even talking about Johnny or why her mom would be lecturing her about him. But Mark reminds her he's very busy at this point and says they can talk about it later. And again, she acts here like they have a much more complicated relationship than they could have possibly had at this point. And she says, you always say we're going to talk about it later, and then we never do. I want to talk about it now.
And this whole thing is one of those things that we discussed before doing our work and research for this episode. We have seen The Room so much that a lot of the stuff that hits you hard when you first watch it just glosses right over it. This is one of them for me. If you don't think about it at all, the whole we are going to talk about it later, but we never do, implying that this happens before, doesn't add anything to the story, doesn't add any character beats. It does nothing. This is such a pointless conversation, and it's so absurd. But by now, since I'm a Room expert, it's like, whatever, this is par for the course.
In a real movie, you don't drop hints at a prior altercation like this and not follow up on them. So the first time you see this, you're like, oh, we're going to find out what Mark and Lisa have in their past. Turns out nothing. The same thing they've got in their heads.
Or even just make it that, Mark is flighty and he can never commit. Okay, well, there's another example of that. Or he doesn't like confrontation, which I guess he doesn't.
All we know is he's very busy.
Very busy, sitting in his car. Lisa does strong arm Mark here into talking about it now because she says, you always do this. This is going to be different. We're going to do this my way this time. And she says, besides, you owe me one. So Mark acknowledges that, Dad. He's like, yeah, you're right. I do owe you one.
Again, what is that?
What is the one?
I don't know. Lisa's doing some kind of favors for a lot of people and acquiring these deaths that she can play later, kind of like Varys in Game of Thrones.
Well, no, that is a great comparison because Tommy Wiseau believes women are Varys from Game of Thrones. Like they have a network of little birds sending out false and true information to manipulate every person in their lives at their whim.
Let me back up and repeat what just happened on the Boob Tube Boys here. Spencer said, The Room is a lot like Game of Thrones. And Brian said,
yeah.
Yep.
Let's go to the highlights.
And
right
I
there.
agree.
Yeah, it's because this podcast is good.
Like Game of Thrones.
And The Room.
Now that Lisa has gotten Mark's permission to talk about this thing that's really just boiling over in her brain, she unloads about Claudette, calls her a stupid bitch who wants to run her life, says she's not going to do that anymore. She's going to do what she wants to do. And then asks Mark what he thinks she should do. Again, Mark is clueless about any of the deeper meaning here and just gives Lisa generic friend advice. Like, hey, you seem happy with Johnny and you should just enjoy your life because she hadn't thought about that.
I mean, this is definitely going to go right out of my head the second I hang up the phone.
It's pretty clear I wasn't actually busy because I'm all into this now.
Lisa says, oh, that sounds good. I need to see you tomorrow. not today, tomorrow. And Mark says, okay, sure. How about noon? And that's that. Okay. They've got a lunch date because it's the middle of the week and they're going to hang out at noon.
Right. Because Johnny has to be at work.
Right.
Plan to work. So Lisa's at her lurking station. Mark's not busy that day.
It's a Thursday.
He probably had to clear his schedule. He's so fucking busy.
And I'll note right now, it is, again, like it always is, probably the afternoon right now.
It seems like it's always the after, except in the party at the end. In the Room universe, it's always the afternoon.
The worst time
I hate when the sun comes in
Oh,
through the window
I
in an
fucking
obnoxious fashion.
Get that out of here.
The sun as a whole.
Like, you should stay in the East. I don't like you being in the West. Is that right? Rises in the East,
Yeah.
sets in the
Yeah.
West.
Just
Okay.
like the Beauty and the Beast song says. That's how I always remember it.
I remember that. Sing it for us. What is it?
Tale as old as tea, because it's a teacup.
Oh, yeah. And it's real. Oh, because it's
Mrs.
Pottersworth
Potts?
or something
Yeah,
stupid.
Lumiere, he's probably in there.
Angela Lansbury versus
Yeah.
that voices a teapot.
Teapot she was.
Angela Lansbury played the teapot?
Yeah,
I did not know that.
that's her. She's
That's,
apparently a great singer. I
I
don't
had
know.
no idea. This is good to know in the
Let's
middle
talk
of the
about,
Room podcast.
Yeah, Beauty and the Beast more.
Gaston and Tommy Wiseau have the same haircut.
After another brief room cut with more San Francisco footage and another cable car, it's evidently noon the next day because Mark is making his first appearance in the red living room.
All days begin at noon in the room. It's just a cycle of noon to 4 that repeats.
Well, they begin at 8:28, but yes,
Oh,
we
yeah.
key in on the noon to 4 part of every day.
You know what Mark does? Mark does what a friend who's visiting another friend would do. Is as soon as he walks in the room, goes,
That's
"Hi,
right down.
how you doing?" Like
Yeah.
he's talking to a group of people he's never met before. It's just the dialogue is so bad.
Yeah, and then Lisa does what people also do and says, "Please, I've prepared one dinner chair in the center of the living room
That
for
is
you."
so awkward. It looks like the chair is basically blocking the front door. It's so close to it.
If I saw that, I would think this is a setup hostage deal.
Yeah, like you're going to get interrogated and beaten or
Yeah.
something.
Like Reservoir Dogs
Ex-
with the ear.
Except her interrogation method involves shoving a giant glass of wine in his hands. Again, this is, like Van said, like a Thursday at noon.
Well, and I did also take umbrage with that until I realized that these were 4-hour days we're working with in the room. So, like, when are you going to drink, It's got to be the afternoon.
It's 8:28 somewhere. Lisa, having done all this to a still clueless Mark at this point, observes that it's really hot in the room and starts taking off quite a bit of her top.
She goes, "Do you mind?" when pulling at the thing, and he goes, "Oh, whatever, it's fine."
No, it's fine.
Mark is
None
very,
of this is weird to me at all.
Mark is very dumb, and he still has no real idea of what's going on, but he's beginning to put some of the pieces together, and he lists out some of his observations that he's had in his brain. This is Mark's list of what's not quite right here. I mean, the candles, the music, the sexy dress. What's going on here?
And already, Lisa has also been rubbing her hands all over Mark,
Mm-hmm.
and the soundtrack has gotten really ominous.
And he can hear it.
I would imagine.
You would think with Mark clearly not being into it by his initial reaction that Lisa might kind of dial it back a little bit and be like, "Ah, shit, my seduction failed." No, she doesn't shy away. She perches on the arm of the chair that he's in, tells him directly, "I like you very much, lover, boy."
That pause is really in the movie.
I could not read that line any other way. I have to.
I mean, who doesn't like Loverboy? From loving every minute of it to working for the weekend or the way they play Hot Girls in Love. Everyone loves their brand of 1980s pop rock.
And Lisa and Mark they are working for the weekend.
At this point, she starts petting his hair and asks, "Don't you like me? I'm your girl?" Also a question. Both of those are questions.
Again, at this point, get up, get out of there. She's speaking in weird broken sentence fragments now. Like something is loose.
And finally, Mark is sort of he never gets all the way where a person would act, but he's getting there a little bit. He's not having whatever this is right now. He pulls her hands away and informs her, not for the last time, that Johnny's his best friend.
Best friend.
Emphasis is always on best.
Lisa still isn't giving up. She advises Mark, "You know what? Forget Johnny." But somehow that doesn't work either. Mark says, "I don't think so," and gets up to leave.
Lisa's around now trying to see if she can get her fingers into Mark's nostrils. She's just pawing at his mouth and his face.
And Mark is steadfast. He's like, "No, I'm not. I'm just not going to do this." And Lisa's like, "Well, I know what'll get him."
But
And
he
she's-
isn't outraged. He's not
No.
standing up.
No, he's just kind of like, nah, I don't want to do this. But Lisa, she thinks, well, this isn't working because I'm not going at it passionately enough. And she says, "Please don't leave. I need you. I love you." And grabs his face tightly. She says she doesn't love Johnny and needs Mark to make love to her. This is all coming from Mark being like, I better go. Mark has a will of iron, though. So he pries her claws off his face and assures her everything's going to be fine with her and whatever the fuck she's going through.
Weird response to this whole thing. Everything will be fine. This all tells me nothing will be fine at all.
And he's like, "You'll be okay. I'm not going to do whatever this is. I'm going to go." He gets up to go, and then immediately starts kissing her. After all that resistance, he couldn't give in a moment longer, I guess.
Yeah, what was it that did it there?
I don't know.
I think it was the stern but somewhat disappointed, I need you to make love to me.
And he was like, I guess if she needs it.
So I guess the idea is that whole time his will had been slowly breaking, but that doesn't come across.
It's not in the dialogue or the performance.
There's at no point it looks like he's going to go for it, and then he just does.
Yeah.
If you're going to go for it, though, you might as well get comfortable and find the best place to do it, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Johnny's not home.
This is 17 minutes into the movie, and we've got our next sex scene already.
Not only is it just 17 minutes into the movie, it's only 9 minutes from when the last sex scene ended.
This time, as Van hinted at, this sex scene's on the staircase.
Yeah, that's my number
The first
one
time
choice.
I saw this, I assumed they were going up the stairs to the bed.
Oh, it couldn't make it. It was too passionate.
Yeah.
Except the sex scene, which we get more soft R&B and dubbed over pleasure moans from the two actors, is really slow and gentle. Slow, gentle sex on the stairs. Doesn't make sense.
I don't
Mostly
know.
clothed.
I don't think you can get into it if you're on the stairs because somebody's going to really get hurt.
Especially that spiral case. They'll go through that thing.
And this sex scene does have something that the last one I thought sorely needed. Finger snaps.
Yeah. And this is where we get the song that tells us that you are my rose, you are my rose, you are my rose.
Yeah, we didn't know before. We weren't sure.
Right. I believe it is a rose is what you are.
That's like the chorus or something maybe, or the bridge. I don't know what's what in that song. So there's lots of neck nuzzling here and a little gentle grinding.
Jeans.
Thankfully, it's only a few minutes, so it's not that marathon session that Johnny and Lisa had.
The sex noises were recorded afterwards.
And you can definitely tell.
They are not mixed into the sound well.
Yeah, well, and they're clearly having fun
Yeah.
at that point.
Yeah, it is over
late.
the top.
Mm-hmm.
It's very calm and gentle what they're doing, but the moans, I should have recorded some so the listeners could hear, but it's just so over the top.
Which is, that's fake or it'd be ow.
After another very, very quick cut that's given them enough times to put their clothes back on, you can see that the couples, now that they've satisfied their carnal appetites for each other, it's time to face down the consequences, which Mark looks at as something that Lisa did to him immediately. It's like, I can't believe you used my body to fuck you, even though I'm Johnny's best friend.
Right away, we get the Tommy Wiseau thesis through Mark's eyes, which is, Lisa, it's your fault I had sex with you, and you've ruined mine and Johnny's friendship.
And I don't know if I clarified, but they, even after dressing, are still talking on the stairs they fucked on. They didn't get off those.
No, they stayed there for a while, and that's what makes me uncomfortable. Not that I just had to watch two people I don't ever want to see have sex, but that they won't get off the damn stairs. That's not comfortable. There's a couch over there. Have at it.
Yeah, there's like fluids on there.
Maybe Lisa doesn't like to talk at her lurking station. She's like, I don't want to mix business.
I can only scheme and lurk over there.
She does lurk, and she talks with Claudette where she lurks, but maybe that's just Claudette's part of the lurking.
Well, Claudette's a schemer lurker.
Yeah,
and
she's part of it.
Later on, we see Tommy lurking here. So this is his lurk area, not hers.
Oh, Tommy does his best lurking perched on the stairs with it kind of in gargoyle mode.
Lisa's a little hurt that Mark is immediately regretting
that
too. She's hurt she's bruised emotionally too, Van. And she wonders, like, didn't you enjoy it at least a little bit? Mark acknowledges that she's very attractive, or she's beautiful, but they can't do this anymore.
Why is that?
He can't hurt Johnny.
Oh, why? What in relation to Mark is Johnny?
He's his best friend.
Holy shit.
And Lisa gets that. She tells him, Mark, you're Johnny's best friend. And Mark cheerfully suggests this can be their secret. They kiss again and the scene ends.
Oh, I thought it was a secret, like a one-time. No, it's gonna keep going. Okay.
I guess the secret, like, we can't do this again, but it was good doing it, and we also still are not going to go back to being just friends. I don't know.
I don't have enough stare imprints on my back yet.
There's this strange sort of deal and arrangement that they've made here that I don't think anyone's going to understand.
And as the saying goes, secrets are no fun. Secrets hurt someone.
Couldn't have said it better myself. In the next scene, Johnny's making another work shopping trip, I guess, for Lisa, which I think is pretty much daily. And this time, we get to see him in action. He doesn't just come home with a box. We see where he goes when he wants to get a gift for Lisa. This is a rapid fire series of events that happens. It's literally 20 seconds in the movie.
I called it a whirlwind of chaos.
That's totally fair. So this place is called Anniversary Flowers and Gifts, which I'd never noticed until taking notes for it this time. It says for every occasion, which I think is a confusing title.
Yeah, the name of the business implies just anniversary.
If it's anniversary, it can't be for every occasion. But that's I presume, a real store in San Francisco. So they got their time to shine in the room here. So Johnny, all in 20 seconds, races into the store at like full speed, pulls his sunglasses up, orders a dozen red roses, greets a pug, pays and leaves. All in 20 seconds.
The part in The Disaster Artist where Tommy Wiseau does not know if the pug on the counter is real or not
Which
made
it very
me
clearly is.
ugly cry laugh the first time I read it. The whole description of that.
Is it real thing?
Is it real thing?
There's another amazing thing in this scene, which is when the clerk at the counter, because everyone who works at a business in San Francisco, a city with millions of people, knows Johnny.
They don't just know him, they love him.
Then they love him. And this woman at the counter shop, once she clocks him, she sees him come in the door, but then he approaches the counter again. She goes, "Oh, Johnny."
When he takes his sunglasses off.
"I didn't know it was you. You look just like all of the people that come in here."
I mean, until his sunglasses go up, then she sees his eyes, and she's like, "That's Johnny." You can't tell with the baggy clothes and the long black hair and the fact that he's walking like 20 miles an hour at her.
Oh, good. The sunglasses are off. If the eyes had been symmetrical, you could have been someone else.
"Oh, Johnny, I didn't know it was you." And then the order, "I'll have a dozen red roses. Keep the change. You're my favorite customer." That's the scene. It's I couldn't do it justice, but it all takes place in 20 seconds.
This is also the first time we see Tommy Wiseau's real car, the white Mercedes he pulls up in.
This is my favorite scene in the movie, and I think a lot of people point to
it's incredible.
The rooftop scene we're going to have coming up, which is great. This is my favorite.
The flower shop scene?
How bang, bang, yeah. I love this scene. I do want to point one thing out, and I want to limit myself to talking about this scene because we can go on forever. The one thing I want to point out is that when he walks up to the counter, she greets him and says, "No, I didn't realize it was you, Johnny." There's a hobgoblin at the counter as well that I didn't notice until this time. Did you see this thing?
I only noticed the pug and the flower lady.
I'm pantomiming for the audience who can't see it, but I'm giving you the back and to the left Kennedy assassination description here. Okay, here's the lady, and then there's the table, and here's Johnny. Well, at this end of the table, which is just slightly off camera, there's a person, I think, standing there, but this person is maybe 5 foot tall.
Okay, I did, yes.
I don't, wow. I hadn't seen it until now.
I didn't really take in the whole flower shop at all until having to critically analyze the room.
Somehow we've watched the movie a million times, and there are some details that I didn't notice until this experience.
This is one of two scenes in San Francisco area businesses that Tommy Wiseau kind of last minute asked to shoot at, and they let him, and they were really nice, even when he wasn't. But the funny thing about them, both scenes, he came in and did not like that there weren't enough customers and said, "This is San Francisco. This is a big city. We need it to be realistic. We need a bunch of customers in here." Well, they were in the realistic situation of the store, and there weren't very many.
So, yeah, it's real by its own definition.
He shoots everything at 1 p.m. or whatever when people have stuff to do.
Not realistic in the room universe and Tommy Wiseau's head.
Yeah, everything's busy happening, a party.
I enjoy this thing about how, even though we've seen it a million times, every time we watch it, we do make up something different.
Yeah.
And our last time of watching it, prepping for this very podcast, we all just started going nuts on the idea that what if everything in the room is just its own, like it wasn't even Earth, and they did their own stuff. They had their own rules.
It's never explicitly said, but the things that go on New Earth here are just different. And like it has a different set of rules, a different English language.
A lot. With Van's favorite scene having concluded.
Okay, we're done. I don't need to do the rest, right?
Oh, sorry, you weren't done?
No, No, I mean, it was a joke about me stopping the podcast.
Of the movie.
You only wanted to talk about that. All right, that's fine.
It was very fun.
So you don't want to. I just didn't. I thought I messed something up. You scared me. I was like, I have failed as a host. My mouth is dry because I've been talking for 100 hours. So let's take a break and regroup.
Hey, it's Kevin Sorbo again. It's time for another scene from 2003's The Room as performed by the Boob Tube Boys. I think it's necessary to say that one time I, Kevin Sorbo, was cartwheeling my way down the sidewalk and I saw a Jewish person, so I made a big scene, pinched my nose between my fingers, and said loudly, "Phew-wee, I smell a dirty diaper." But then I realized I had soiled my own adult undergarment. Anyway, here's Van playing the role of Johnny, Brian as Denny, and narration by Spencer.
Denny enters, passing a perturbed Mark. The young man shrugs as Johnny sits in his chair, flipping the football in his hands.
Hey, Johnny.
Oh, hi, Denny.
What's wrong with Mark?
He's cranky today. Girl trouble, I guess. What's new with you?
Not much. Still going to the movie tonight?
Sure we are.
What kind of movie are we going to see?
Well, we'll see. Denny, don't plan too much. It may not come out right.
All right, let's toss the ball around.
Okay.
Johnny stands up, and the two begin to toss a football to one another while standing 5 feet apart.
Gotta tell you about something.
Shoot, Denny.
It's about Lisa.
Go on.
She's beautiful. She looks great in a red dress. I think I'm in love with her.
Go on.
I know she doesn't like me because sometimes she's mean to me, but sometimes when I'm around her, I feel like I just want to kiss her and tell her I love her. I don't know. I'm just confused.
Denny, don't worry about that. Lisa loves you too. As a person, as a human being, as a friend. You know people don't have to say it. They can feel it.
By now, the two have stopped throwing the football and sit down facing one another.
What do you mean?
You can love someone deep inside your heart, and there's nothing wrong with it. If a lot of people loved each other, the world would be a better place to live.
Lisa's your future wife.
Denny, don't worry about it. You are a part of our family, and we love you very much. And we will help you anytime. And Lisa loves you too, as a friend. You're sort of like her son.
You mean you're not upset with me?
Denny stands up, and Johnny follows suit.
No, because I trust you, and I trust Lisa. What about Elizabeth, huh?
Well...
Denny walks away from Johnny and approaches the ledge before turning to face him once again.
I love her.
Mm-hmm.
When I graduate from college, get a good job, I want to marry her and have kids with her.
That's the idea.
Johnny approaches Denny, putting his arm around the young man.
You're right. Thanks for paying my tuition.
You're very welcome, Denny, and keep in mind, if you have any problems, talk to me. I will help you.
Awesome. Thanks, Johnny.
Let's go eat, huh? Come on, let's go. Let's go. I'm starving.
The two exit the roof through the weird door in the corner. Lisa at the townhouse is ordering a pizza. It's half Canadian bacon with pineapple. That's normal. Half artichoke with pesto, light on the cheese.
Yeah, I hate cheese on my pizza.
That's the Domino's What the Hell special.
I think Tommy Wiseau had in his script, okay, for this scene, Lisa orders gross pizza in the dark.
And also, in real life, you're making this complicated for the people at Domino's. Like, don't do that. Come on.
What gives us the idea it's Domino's? This could be a fancy pizzeria in San Francisco.
No, because we know that the door rings, therefore, get the door. It's Domino's.
Well, it's actually Denny.
It's Denny Mo's.
Lisa answers Denny at the door because, yes, he comes over immediately when she's done placing that pizza order. And she tells him, as she learned from Mark, that she's really busy. And would you like something to drink?
Contradictory statements.
I'm very busy. How can I help you?
I'm super busy right now, Denny. You want to hang out?
Then he says you really just need to talk to Johnny. He's not really there for anything else. And then observes that she looks especially beautiful today and asks if he can kiss her. Follow up a nice compliment with that. That's Denny for you.
If someone asked this to me and they were like younger or anything like this, immediately I can never trust another thing they do or say, and I can't be in a room alone with them.
What's funny, too, is that Lisa's response is, oh, you.
Yeah,
she calls him a little
cute.
brat. And he's like, oh, you 22-year-old creepy perv silly boy.
You're always teasing.
She then offers, since the reason he came over was Johnny, for him to wait. Do you want to wait? I'm sure Johnny will be right back. And he says, no, I have to go. This whole thing is...
My home planet needs me.
How does it make any sense?
No, I actually wasn't needed for this scene. I just kind of wandered in a door I saw.
It is literally seconds later that Johnny pulls in after we see another cable car passing by. And Lisa greets him happily as he whips out the dozen red roses that we just saw him buying earlier and shoves them at her.
What if it's Hanukkah or something? And he has to, it's like a gift. You know how there's a gift for each day?
Oh, okay. Maybe that's what it is. That makes sense.
I mean, I can't think of anything else.
She asks him if he got his promotion. Johnny makes a face and a noise. I don't know how else to say what he did. It's not a positive thing. It's obvious that no.
It's very clear the promotion did not happen.
Lisa doesn't get that, though. She scowls and follows him into the living room that he is going to go deposit himself into and accuses him of not getting the promotion.
No, I didn't get it. You didn't get it, did you?
That's exactly how it goes. Let's hear the details of this from Lisa's side.
You didn't get it, did you?
But son of a bitch told me that I would get it within 3 months. I saved them bundles. They're crazy. I don't think I will ever get it. They betrayed me. They didn't keep their promise. They tricked me and I don't care anymore.
Did you tell them how much you saved them?
Of course, what do you think? They already put my ideas into practice. The bank saves money and they are using me and I am the fool.
So that's awesome.
That's really dramatic. I didn't get the promotion. That's the answer to that question.
Well, Claudette said his position was secure, not that he could move up.
Based on that ominous string music back there, I don't think his position or his life is very secure right now.
Yeah, this is just any fucking good old red-blooded American man flopping himself down on the couch, telling his girl how the boss man's holding him down, right?
Mm-hmm. How do you save the bank money with ideas?
They're good ideas, Van.
It's just like, put a propeller on the building. And that's it. That's
I don't
the
think
idea.
you understand. You saved him bundles.
Well, they already put his ideas into practice, and it worked.
Maybe it was bananas. And what he's saying is he came up with an idea to order bananas from a different store, to feed the staff.
Right.
And so now they save 2 cents a day or whatever on the bananas. He saved them bundles.
Yeah, we don't know
bananas.
what sorts of ideas they've got him cooking up in there.
Johnny doesn't know what sorts of ideas either, I don't think. And it's never made clear. This is as specific of a bank scene as you're going to get in the room.
Just a couple talking about their work day.
Yeah, it's totally believable in every sense. Well, Lisa kind of catches on that Johnny is not taking this very well at all. And I mean, listening to it in our version, our little file that we played, I had never heard the deep string music back there that clearly. So I didn't realize when that one part happens and she's like, have you told them how much you've saved them? It really sounded like it could have been a horror movie in that moment.
And it helps tie together the intended emotion of the scene versus if you didn't have the music, you'd be like, oh, this man is reciting a string of words he knows.
That whole monologue he does there is hilarious. That's one of the parts of the movie that you cry.
Yeah, the first few times I saw it, this was a cry laugh scene for me.
She tries to cheer him up by stating that despite all this failure, she still loves him.
And she doesn't.
And has admitted that to other characters in the film already.
Several of them. And then things take a real dark turn as she says, at least you have friends. I didn't get any calls today. You were right. The computer business is too competitive.
That's how we know Lisa is in the computer business. That's Tommy Wiseau's research he did on Lisa's job. You know how a lot of authors or screenwriters will do a lot of prep work?
Yeah, to get the verbiage right.
Yeah. Make sure their character feels real.
When you look at Tommy's face in this scene as she says that to him, it's blank. It looks like he doesn't remember telling her that at all.
Or that computers are things.
Yeah.
It's just a series of creases.
What do you think she does with the computer business?
Gives computers to people.
Well, I guess we know it's called a Dell, not a Lisa.
So she must be a salesperson.
That's what I'd assume.
I think that's what she's supposed to be doing at her lurking meddling station. But instead, she's supposed to be making work calls. Instead, she calls Mark.
Do you think it is too competitive, the computer business?
Oh,
Or
definitely.
she's just bad?
Oh, it's oversaturated.
Okay.
Johnny's right. I don't question his acumen.
I mean, this is a businessman, this Johnny. Have you seen how big his suits are?
That's how you judge a man's success value.
This guy wears a suit the size of a CEO's suit. You know what the C stands for?
What?
Suit.
Sure does.
Lisa just very awkwardly pivots right back to being cheerful for Johnny's sake, just very suddenly to where it's kind of scary, and says, do you want me to order you a pizza so that we can both forget about our horrible lives and our failed days?
Focus on our horrible dinner instead.
A dejected Johnny says he doesn't care. He says something like, whatever, I don't care. Like life is meaningless to him. However, he gets a little happy when she says, I already ordered a pizza, which I don't know why. He didn't seem to be interested, but when she's like, but it's already on the way, he's like, cool, you think about everything.
And I do think this is a situation of like a kid with peekaboo, where he doesn't want the pizza, but the object permanence of like, but it will be here, really dazzles him.
Yeah.
It does change his tune. For a little bit, he actually looks cheerful. and does use the words I just said to compliment Lisa's pizza ordering skills with "you think about everything."
You stop and you think about everything. Pencils and horses and fig leaf.
That's one of
Religion,
those
Congress.
speaking English natively things where you don't realize the huge difference about and of
Yeah.
means there.
Oh, Lisa, you have a vast preponderance of knowledge. It's like, no, what you want to just say is like, oh man, you really got me covered there. Like you really did. Fuck it, I can't do it either. Way to go, Tommy Wiseau. You think about everything.
Lisa has another really good idea, by the way, to boost their spirits, guys, which is to drink some spirits. Johnny laughs it off because you guys know he doesn't drink.
This is also played like there's a backstory that there isn't, that will never come up in the movie. But Johnny says, I don't drink.
Like he's had a negative experience with it or something, or former alcoholic, I don't know. But he clearly swears it off. That part, I would assume, is just because the real guy would never touch anything like that.
Was he just a teetotaler or what?
That's what I suspect. So, like, a lot of the cast and crew, I think, pretty unfairly believed he was acting the way he was because he was on drugs of some sort.
Right.
But
he's the opposite.
He seemed very, very straight edge about all that stuff, almost to, like, a principled point.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the way they treat the drinking, the way he says these lines, it's like it's a bad thing. It's a negative concept.
Now, he did drink a lot of caffeine. Like a ton of
Bulls.
caffeine, and was on prescribed medications, according to the disaster artist. What those are, I don't know. So it's possible all of that could have been interacting strange too. But I mean, let's be honest, any interview or public appearance of Tommy Wiseau, this is the guy. This is how he is.
Okay, other option is that he didn't mean he doesn't drink alcohol. He meant he doesn't drink liquids. He gets all of his hydration from the carrion he eats.
Okay.
As believable as anything, yes. I'm totally fine with that.
That would also explain why in real life his other favorite beverage other than Red Bull is hot water.
Disgusting.
And he orders it at restaurants.
It's so weird. By the way, Lisa doesn't, as with anything in this movie, someone tells her no and she just doesn't give a shit. She comes back after a quick cut with 2 glasses, half full of some kind of amber liquid.
Scotch or something?
I assume it's just a neutral mixing agent, but it could be whiskey or some kind of dark liquor.
It looks to me like alcohol.
It does.
That was my initial thought.
But here's the problem with that, as you guys know, is that now she tops whatever's in that glass off liberally with a lot of vodka.
What could be in that glass?
We always joke that it was like cream soda and they were doing like a weird screwdriver.
Because I can't imagine what this could be that is a real drink.
Yeah, because yes, you could do Pepsi and vodka, but that's not something
gross.
you set out to
do.
It's
the famous whiskey vodka cocktail that everyone loves to order at bars.
I love them good and warm,
like
too.
The suicide concept, except with liquor.
Because, I mean, you think of, like, 2 things. You think of vodka, which is normally going to be, like, people are maybe taking shots or mixing it.
Yeah.
And I think, like, a lot of the darker alcohols, you think more of, like, I'm going to have a finger of this in a nice glass. So at the beginning, you think Lisa's setting down 2 glasses for them to each sip on and enjoy, not having a complete and total party and pouring a whole other liquor in there.
On sight, that's not enough to convince a reluctant Johnny, but Lisa just goes ahead and smashes the glass into his face and kind of pours it down his throat for him, and as soon as he has it in him, he admits it tastes good.
Which there is no way it tastes good.
No, it makes me gag just looking at it, honestly.
Even if it makes him feel good, the taste would be reprehensible.
That's not what Johnny says. In fact, I want to do my best at reading the line the way he does because it's wonderful. You're right, it tastes good.
It tastes good. It's that extended ooh.
Yeah, it's like a really long good. So Lisa, at this point, she's got the alcohol in him. It's clear that the evening's going to take a turn for them. There are nasty pizzas on the way, and things are looking up. And to top it off, she's got some real good advice, which is, don't worry about those fuckers at the bank. You're a good man.
The way she says fuckers is priceless.
It's so casual. I love it. I still say stuff that way. I'll
about this fuckers.
Like walk up to my cat and be like, don't worry about those fuckers.
Coop is a good man. So at the party, raging on in the next scene, which clearly they've been going at it for a while in between those cuts.
I think you need to specify going at alcohol because they do go at each other a lot.
No, this is just they've had several drinks. And now I noticed that their glasses are just the vodka. So they drank their weird, fucked up mixture.
They're through one layer.
And that'd be great if that's what it was. And also that would mean the vodka like
it
swapped
holds
with
up
the
there.
whiskey and got underneath it. Lisa, in this wild partying, has done cool girl partier stuff and taken Johnny's tie and put it on her head.
Can you even imagine being at a party this fucking unhinged?
I can't imagine being that cool either to think of that. Johnny, like all inebriated people, is shaking violently because he's drunk. That's just what happens. And in a moment of goofy fun, this is just silly, lighthearted stuff. A drunken Johnny drops a really fucking heavy whiskey glass they're drinking out of on their hard floor. It shatters loudly and just, I would think their skin is being pierced by all this glass and they're all just laughing it off like it's a goofy little spill.
And this is after he just poured the alcohol straight down his body.
To the point where it was coming out the side of his mouth.
This is one of my favorite side parts of this movie.
It's incredible.
He slowly, softly puts his arm to his side with the glass in it, drops it maybe a couple feet from the ground. Not hard. He didn't throw it.
Sounds
and
like he
it
did.
shatters so loud throughout the room. So good.
My very favorite thing about this scene is, again, we've said Tommy Wiseau is some sort of teetotaler. And his drunk acting is so misguided.
His impersonation of this is what drunk people do.
Yeah,
not close.
Not even close. Whatever he's doing is also supposed to be like ultra on the drunk scale. And if you want to see that done well, may I refer you to the film we last covered, Champagne and Bullets, where Wings Hauser nails it.
That would be the go-to on that for sure.
But this, again, is the earmark of someone who, I mean, in whatever the case, has like their own internal problem with alcohol. I mean, agenda against it, because Tommy Wiseau makes it out to be like any amount will turn you into the devil.
It's a very Reefer Madness take.
Yeah.
On drinking,
Yes.
And later we get one about reefer too.
Yeah.
We
so
sure do.
Yeah, Tommy Wiseau's preachiness about drugs of any kind comes, he didn't even mean to do it, and it comes out so loudly in the scenes that he did put drugs or alcohol in this film.
Is an extremely preachy movie
in
in general.
Somehow. I don't know why or how that happened, but it does.
And we do get a glimpse of the pizza, by the way, they've been eating.
Looks just as bad as it sounds.
Little Caesars heard that order from Lisa and said, just give him a cheese, because that's what it is. It's a cheese pizza.
Yeah, and it's been out a while.
So at this point, drunken couples, they're having fun with each other. You know how that goes when it starts to take a sexy turn as you start complimenting parts of each other's body.
Right.
Where a really giggly Lisa decides, well, okay, it starts with Johnny, to be fair. He decides to tell Lisa that she has nice legs. He's drunk, he's having fun. You have nice legs, Lisa. Lisa's giggly as fuck at this point because she's drunk and she's partying. She's got a tie in her head and she says, you have nice pecs.
I take it back. This part rules too, because this was all exists for a young woman to tell Tommy Wiseau that his working out paid off.
Mm-hmm.
He was writing that script with a feather pen in his room, and he wrote that part where a woman tells him you have nice pecs. It all stemmed from his brain. Johnny is tired, he's wasted, and he loves Lisa, as he tells her. Lisa doesn't want the party to end, though. She says, hey, come on, make love to me. And he doesn't want to. He makes one of those little sounds, like I just don't feel like it.
Which runs contradictory, again, to everything Johnny says or does. He always wants it.
But it's a thing where he's saying, as the man, I'm having to push people off of me. Everyone wants to have sex with me constantly.
And there's this idea, okay, bear with me, guys.
Is this one of those? Are we ready for that?
No, it's not one of those.
Okay.
That's going to happen. But this is one of these. There's this idea that I've picked up on from having male friends my whole life, many of whom were not necessarily, super sexually active, that there's valor in rejecting sexual advances, that the turning down of sex is somehow morally correct.
I see.
And I think Tommy Wiseau's putting some of that in here.
Could
of like,
be.
a good guy knows to say no sometimes, or whatever.
Even to your fiance.
Yeah, exactly. When she's asking you, I think to your point, Van, there's some of this like, I am so valiant and it is, and sex is so readily available to me, the perfect man, that with nice pecs, I will say no and go hang from the ceiling.
And also too, could be that he's like, Well, drunk people can't fuck. There's no way. When you get this drunk, you can't do anything like that.
I think there could be some of
I'm
that
not
of
physically
like
capable
that
anymore.
would be taking advantage or something. Even though this is, as we talked about, a couple after work that's wanting to get it on, is what it seems like, because most of the movie that's what's happening.
Lisa has an ace in the hole here because Johnny also owes her one, as it turns out. So
everybody does.
He does have to have sex with her. He acknowledges the debt just the way Mark did. Before the fucking, they do like an even more disturbing scene than the sex scene, which is an unnecessary, very intense makeout scene, which takes like a full minute probably.
They're standing still. Their bodies are still and their heads are still, but their lips are moving.
Ugh,
it's really unnerving.
They sure are too. That's like really aggressive face eating in that scene.
He's just kind of chewing on her.
Yeah, seeing what's in there. I don't know.
So then after that, we're back upstairs for another fuck scene. The good thing about this one.
Yeah, go on.
Yeah, no, the good thing about this room sex scene is that it's much shorter and they actually just go ahead and recycle some of the first sex scene shots.
By the way, Tommy Wiseau did not think anyone would pick up on that.
And that tells me, too, it feeds into the thing where he's not really a sexual being at all. Yeah. He doesn't have that humanity because he obviously wanted to put sex scenes in his movie, but went about it in a very strange way. None of it really adds up when you think about it. I don't know why he would go to the lengths to make sex scenes and then just splice in shots that already took place.
Right, because it's not adding anything to the film at all. You would just go to the next scene, no new information or even titillation, if that is somehow what you're taking from this, is happening here. So I think this might be another situation where Tommy Wiseau, to your point, Spencer, not a very sexual guy, is thinking, men like sex a lot. We just need to have the hero having sex a lot.
But it doesn't matter if it's something they've already seen.
Yeah, and it's probably raining that night too. So we'll just show the window again with the rain trickling down it.
Copy and paste fuck scene, which is really bizarre and has never been done before.
I asked this to Brian via text the other day, Spencer, and think about this. Do you think...
I already know which question this is.
I'm sure you do.
Is it, do I think girls like to cheat like guys do?
Surprisingly not. We'll ask that question later and answer it. Do you think there was any time in your life where you personally could utilize the sex scenes in the room for personal gratification of any sort?
No.
Do you think there are people out there, both of you, who can't?
No.
I don't think so. These are so asexual
I think
sex
there's
scenes.
probably one.
Well, all right, but more than one. Wait, let's move the bar
more
to that.
than the guy that made the movie.
Yeah, plus one or
even
none.
Even him, I question that he would feel that way about anything. But no, I don't think even a very horny teenager who didn't even have access to anything but this would know to get aroused by it.
Right.
It wouldn't work instinctively.
Yeah, us and like say this was in 1996. Yeah, something like that.
96 was my horniest year.
And I didn't have... Let's come back to that. I didn't have access to any of that stuff. It was so hard to see and find because I was an 11-year-old boy at this point.
So horny.
I get a hold of the room and I know what I'm ready to do and I hit play. I don't think I can do it.
You would.
I don't think so either. I think that because I'm with you guys. I didn't have the internet in 1996 or anything. In fact, 1996 was infamously the year that HBO Free Preview Weekend gave me the Dallas Cowboy Cheerleaders tryout video 1996. Big deal in my room after midnight, changing the channel if I heard a noise. But anyway, yeah, no internet, nothing like that. The room, there's no way that would have done it. This would have been more like stumbling onto Faces of Death on accident.
Well, the question then would be, what was your most horny year?
Oh, probably like 99 or something.
I don't have an answer. They're all pretty horny.
I don't know how I would respond if you were to say like this year. I don't know what I would do.
Yeah.
I guess I just accept it and move right on with our room podcast.
Anyone who might have said that, let's say me in this scenario, they're trying to get you to talk about it.
Right. Like, it's kind of a yes and,
yeah,
but no one wants to do it.
Well, also though, what a strange claim to be like, yeah, now that I'm almost 40, I'm really revving to go all the time.
Yeah, I'm practically oozing semen as I walk around.
Did you see how Katie was walking around today? Yeah, there's a reason for that.
I've been opening doors with my penis. I don't even know how that would work, actually. I guess it wraps around like a snake.
Keep going.
Oh, we're going to make whoever's listening to this have their horniest year if we keep going.
It's already established this podcast as super pro snake or the ultimate tube animal. We've got all that down.
Yep.
So, the sex scene's behind us for now. We got another very jarring cut It's back to room time, which is middle of the day in the red living room. Lisa is looking like she is trying to work in this scene.
She's standing and has a clipboard.
She also is dressed like maybe a little more professionally than usual. She's got the blue sort of business casual. I put down it's computer business casual.
She is, for the first time in the movie so far, wearing daytime clothes.
Mm-hmm. And not her lurker outfit.
Yeah, lurker or lingerie.
I don't think any person has ever utilized a clipboard in the home.
I
No.
couldn't even tell if that was a clipboard at first, and later I said it was a clipboard adjacent object in her hand because I don't know what Lisa's doing. But yeah, that is noteworthy that she's talking to her mother with a clipboard in her hand.
That's her client.
That's odd.
So what this is, I think the clipboard is for organizing Johnny's birthday party.
It's very possible
okay.
because she is talking to Claudette about the party when the scene starts.
And there was a cut scene in the original script here, too, with Peter, a character that shows up later, and Lisa discussing the party where Lisa pawns off a lot of the work on Peter.
That makes so
Nice.
much sense. I love it. This is a strange scene, but I will say, for some reason, I'm kind of struck by Lisa's little professional mode here. We get to see like a more serious side. When it opens, she seems very proper in her planning for this party with Claudette, and she seems like she's got a task and she's going to do it.
Look, Lisa's in the computer business. She wasn't always the way she is now, kind of lost and adrift. At one point, when she was younger than 22, which is how old she is now, she must have had dreams and like aspirations and really kind of understood she could uncrack the world and kind of crawl inside it when she got older.
Like she does to Tommy.
Unfortunately, she spends one semester abroad in Estonia. Look what happens.
So what I guess I'm trying to say is that I bought her persona in this scene. Like I went, she's very formal with Claudette about the party plan, and I was like, okay, I'm with you. I believe that you're doing this.
Spencer, I think you're bringing up another thing. Van, earlier you said it's almost harder to get your yuck rocks off watching the room for the 400th time because like the stuff that does it for you right away doesn't after repeat viewings. One thing after repeat viewings that I think increases is you root for these people.
Sure.
Like,
oh, yeah.
All the characters in the room you start to think of as these poor kids just trying to, like, thinking maybe this is a real movie. Maybe this leads somewhere. So they're fucking trying, you know?
Absolutely.
And anytime you see a moment like where Lisa seems kind of assertive, like Spencer just pointed out, you kind of are like, oh, Juliet, you got that. Like, there's a little bit of that. Fuck yeah, high five.
Came through.
Yeah.
I'm picking up what she's putting down in that scene.
Which is a clipboard.
Yeah. And we did cover a lot of the notes that I have after that, which is, yes, she's sitting there with her computer business clipboard and her computer business casual outfit talking to her mom about the party, that this is a big blowout party event that she's planning for Johnny. Next Friday, by the way. So it's coming right up. She asks Claudette if she can make it. Says, you can even bring someone. Claudette has a lot to share at this point. I think it was all triggered by you can even bring someone. That's my suspicion. Because Claudette says, oh, sure, I can make it. I don't think I'll bring anyone, though. Presumably because Claudette hates everyone, who we're now about to hear just a little bit about. This all reminds her doing this whole thing about what a jerk that Harold is. Because he wants a share of her house. And guys, that house belongs to Claudette.
Yeah.
The two of them agreed to this 15 years ago. And now the house value is rising and that jerk Harold is seeing dollar signs.
Who is he anyway to do this?
Oh, he's her brother.
Harold.
Oh, okay. Well, it seems kind of dicey then. Like maybe they did have an agreement and she's reneging on it.
As Lisa is the one to remind her of when Claudette says, who does that jerk think he is? He's your brother, Mom.
I think this is an underrated comedy moment. Juliette Danielle actually reads the line with some outrage,
very well.
And it's pretty funny.
Anyway, that jerk Harold, he's a real jerk and he's seeing dollar signs. And I got to say, at this point, there's no putting the toothpaste back in the tube for Claudette at this point.
No, that was her warm-up act, what you just saw. That was the opening comedian.
She's so overwhelmed by life, and she takes this moment to unburden herself as best as she can.
Everything goes wrong at once. Nobody wants to help me, and I'm dying.
You're not dying, Mom.
I got the results of the test back. I definitely have breast cancer.
Look, don't worry about it. Everything will be fine. They're curing lots of people every day.
I'm sure I'll be all right. Oh, I heard Edward is talking about me. He is a hateful man. Oh, I'm so glad I divorced him.
You can just follow the trail in her head at that point. So it starts with hatred for other people, segues into fear of death, and ends on hating people.
Now, what was going on in the writer's mind? Was it like, all right, Claudette's an evil woman. Oh shit, I accidentally made her sympathetic. We've got to turn her and make her complain right away.
This somehow, all this whole thing that Claudette just did transitions into her telling Lisa, well, you know, since I hate everyone and you have a good man, you should be grateful that you don't have an Edward, a hateful man who hates in your life that you're glad you're going to have to divorce. You know, that's not a problem for you. First of all, before Lisa says anything, she's decided that she needs to up her game at this point with the controversy between her and Johnny. This tactic she's about to switch to here is one I would call straight up slander.
And just to remind everyone, this is 2 seconds after her mother told her she had breast cancer.
She said, don't worry
She'll
about
be
it.
fine. And even Claudette is like, oh, I'll be all right.
I don't even know why I brought it up.
Just dropping that dialogue, that information there and never touching it again. Great. It's fantastic.
That's really legitimately as good as anything in the movie. What a man.
You cannot encapsulate what the room is better than what just happened there. But anyway, so Claudette's back on the Johnny thing. Lisa's saying, no, I hate Johnny. And here's where the lies start. And I guess there's no turning back for Lisa at this point, where she says, you're wrong about Johnny being a good man. He's actually terrible. And he didn't get his promotion. He got drunk the other night. And he fucking hit me. Now, Johnny is a physical abuser in Lisa's world and the world she's trying to get everyone else to believe. Claudette, she can't make sense of any of this. Johnny doesn't drink.
That's what she points
out. First thing she focuses on is like, he doesn't have a flaw.
That whole thing where she's like, he hit me. And she dials it back 2 pieces of information before that. Wait a second, Johnny drank? That's just the most nonsensical thing ever.
If I want to do the Brian thing, what I'll say is that Claudette knows Lisa. And Lisa has been corrupted by Claudette and is a manipulative woman.
Okay.
So therefore, Claudette, in her mind, is like, I can't trust anything my daughter says. He doesn't drink.
So you think
of course he doesn't do those other things.
Dismiss the whole story outright. Okay.
I like this a lot, actually. Or perhaps Claudette also is internally displeased with her daughter's lack of reaction at the cancer and says, I'll do the same with your domestic abuse. Both of these hint at the same thing. This is not a healthy mother-daughter relationship.
No, and these are very bad people. And written by somebody who wants you to know they're very bad people. With this all out there, Claudette, she's not sure what to make of it. And she says, you know, honestly, Lisa, I don't know about any of this. And anyway, don't forget, Johnny's your financial security.
Can you even imagine anyone having this reaction to their child being domestically abused?
Well, you know, he does pay for your lifestyle. If he wants to hit you, what can I say?
Have at it.
He didn't suck your blood. I mean,
Yet.
Lisa, understandably here, just kicks Claudette out. She tells her to get the fuck out. And anyway, she has to go meet a computer business client regardless. So it just happens to time that way.
Could be Bill Gates.
In 2003.
Think about it. San Francisco, what do they have there? The Golden what bridge?
Oh.
Gates? Golden Gates Bridge.
It's just him, but he's gold.
He's always there. That's where he does all of his things.
You know, considering how the editing is in this movie, I have sometimes wondered, did Johnny hit her and we just didn't see it? Obviously,
no
was
way.
the answer. He would never do
No,
that.
but to your point, Van, if this were, again, like a different sort of auteur, if this were some sort of early Darren Aronofsky movie or something, you might think, do we know the answer to this? But you know right away, by now even, Johnny's infallible.
So you might go with like the unreliable narrator sort of thing. Like we don't know if what we're seeing actually is true or not.
An unreliable narrator makes this movie a lot more interesting.
Oh God, does it ever? What does Denny do?
Somehow more reliable.
You know, The Talented Mr. Ripley, the movie that in The Disaster Artist Greg Sestero talks about he and Tommy Wiseau going to see. That movie does make you wonder who's really what for a long time.
It is really funny that essentially this really is Tommy Wiseau's Talented Mr. Ripley.
Yeah.
That's his interpretation of that movie, and this is how it came out.
What an absurd thing to say.
It is, though.
But it's true.
By the way, Van, you know how when we get too serious in some of our podcasts, you make us listen to According to Jim?
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember how we did a 100th episode about According to Jim?
Vaguely. Yeah.
Well, that last part actually has nothing to do with it, but what I wanted to say here is that this movie, since it was getting too serious.
Mm.
Cancer,
Yeah.
Edward.
Domestic violence.
Right. That's maybe the biggest
Bad
part of
pizza.
that.
Harold.
Anyway, it's time for some comedic relief. And how do you guys think you get comedic relief in the room?
First, I want some Blink Blanc music.
Well, good. That's what happens.
Second, you get a guy who looks like the worst Mark McGrath.
Where should we set this?
Probably The Room.
The red one, the one that everything's set in?
Yeah, The Room.
Okay.
Yeah, there, you guys are spot on so far. So the good news is you and Tommy Wiseau are aligned perfectly.
That is good news, Spencer.
We meet the new characters in the show, a man and a woman, who will later learn. Right now, we don't know who the fuck these people are, but we later learn this is Mike and Michelle. They are two college-age students, lovers, and apparently like to come over to Johnny's house to fuck when no one's home.
They're also hungry.
Yeah, well, they've got something for that. In this particular scene, the entirety of their sex act, because they came over to fuck, is to feed each other chocolate as foreplay. I don't mean like little nibbles of chocolate. I mean, they devour like an entire box.
Yeah, you get one of those boxes full of assorted chocolate.
One of those fucking hearts. They're
Uh-huh.
trying all hoping they don't get one of those weird ones.
The coconut ones.
Yeah, I kind of like
No,
those.
you're wrong.
I don't ever have sex with them, though.
Well, so these two lovebirds are in, I think they just plop themselves right in that first couch they see in the living room.
Yeah.
And they stare at each other lovingly, and they open the box of chocolates, and they just start shoving it on each other.
On, in the mouth, on the breastplates, just everywhere.
And they're eating like I said, they're eating these entire pieces of chocolate while they film the scene.
They're going to get all full of Logie, too, and like bloated.
Well, there's a reason, though, they're doing this, by the way, guys. And that's, Mike says this aptly, chocolate is the symbol of love. And that's just how he reads it, too.
I got to hand it to Mike and Michelle, who wore their own clothes in this scene, by the way.
Yeah.
They look more like real people because of that. But this screams 2003
It does.
or whatever. Like Mike in particular with that big chunky sweater and those big fat cargo tan pants.
Mhm.
Oh, boy.
Michelle concurs, by the way, with Mike's sage words that, you know what? Chocolate is the symbol of love.
As if it was like a realization.
She slowly descends down out of the camera view. We close in on Mike's dumb face, and the implication, of course, being that oral sex is getting ready to happen. And the scene ends on Mike attempting to emulate what a person does when they're getting their dick sucked.
If that is someone's O-face, they never get to have an orgasm ever again. Do not do that.
Wait, you guys don't turn your whole face inside out?
Go,
If only this wasn't strictly audio and we could just show the picture that I sent you guys earlier in the
Yeah.
text thread of Mike's dumb face. Let's put that on our Instagram when we get a
Yeah,
chance.
why not?
We haven't done that in a while.
Let me tell you what else about this scene right here. I forgot what I was going to say.
Go on.
Go on.
Go on.
Oh, at one point, she has to treat him like a toddler because she's taking his clothes off, and she goes, arms up, and he puts her arms up, or he puts his arms up and takes off his shirt.
Maybe it's because she doesn't like that sweater any more than Brian does, and she just wanted
Could
it off.
be.
It wasn't sex. It was just like, get that ugly fucking 2003 sweater off, Mike.
This is another example of Tommy Wiseau believing all sex involves some sort of fetish also, and is
Yeah.
very elaborate. Got to have a box of chocolates involved.
So
At your friend's house. You're having sex at your friend's house.
you just clued us in on the very most important thing that's happening here, which is that this couple, they get off on fucking in Johnny's house, and yet they're not careful enough to get out before Lisa and Claudette come home from whatever shopping trip they did. Because the next scene, when it cuts, Lisa and Claudette walk in on them. They're almost done, but they're still putting on their clothes. So how do you do this? How can you do this? As Steven might ask. You buy this box of chocolates, you go to this person's house that you're going there to fuck in, and you accidentally stay too long. How do you let that happen?
And you don't do your geography homework.
They didn't get any homework done.
They also clearly aren't listening for anyone arriving or anything.
I would think they would be a little more worried about that.
Yeah.
Do you think they're just sex stains on this couch at
Oh,
any given
yeah,
time?
and
Just like
chocolate-
dozens of people.
Chocolate and semen all over that thing. I'd throw that couch
Apple
out.
cores.
So yeah, Lisa and Claudette return home before the wacky college chocolate eaters can wrap up all their fun. And Lisa is amused to no end to discover that this has been done to her couch in her house. Claudette is pissed. She's not nearly as amused by it as Lisa is. Lisa explains that this is Mike and Michelle. They like to come over and work on their homework together, and then awkwardly introduces them to Claudette. It's Mike tries to shake her hand on the way out, and she won't. She's
Probably
grossed out.
good that
Yeah, it's
she
a good
didn't.
call. Good call. So Michelle leaves behind Mike, and they're out the door. They know they got caught. They're embarrassed, and they're gone. Claudette sits down on the couch and says, "Man, we've been shopping, and I am tired."
Probably because of the breast cancer.
This is another one of the things that Tommy Wiseau was able to recall about women.
They just go
Tired.
shopping together.
Tired
all
from
day.
shopping. Yeah.
So at this point, Denny pops in the open door that they have not shut behind Mike and Michelle and says he needs to borrow some sugar, a cup of flour, and a half a stick of butter.
What do you think he's making?
Cake.
Poison to kill Lisa and then take her body back to his little place and do things with it.
His little place, like he has got a little underground
smaller.
layer or something.
Yeah, he's got like a
He's not
separate
big.
little, like a
Hobbit
little
hole.
mushroom-looking house. Yeah.
If that is poison, it sounds delicious, and I would probably eat it.
He's in his Mormon kid outfit this time.
So Claudette, by the way, listening to Denny innocently ask for all these poison ingredients, is fucking furious. You know what this place is like when you get all that traffic in there, guys?
Fucking Grand Central
Yeah,
Station.
Exactly. You and Claudette think a lot alike.
This is supposed to be hilarious, I think.
It is pretty funny. And
This
by
is,
the way,
this is like Rick writing his jokes
Yes.
and Champagne and Bullets. Yeah.
with Denny wanting all those ingredients, she has a fair point here. Don't you have any of those very common kitchen things, Denny? Don't you have a kitchen? Or are you too busy doing drugs? I got ahead of ourselves a little bit there.
Obviously, he doesn't have it. He wouldn't be asking for it. That drives me nuts.
I do like that Claudette at this point becomes the audience and turns to Lisa and says, "Please explain this. What is Denny?"
What does Denny do?
I will say, I do feel like Denny's kind of weirded out here, and I feel like it's fair because Claudette's just railing at him and he didn't really do
Yeah,
anything.
and he's doing what he normally does, which is kind of barge into his friend's house hoping he catches them mid-coitus.
So, as you guys talked about, the second Denny he's like, okay, your mom's mean, I'm getting out of here. Claudette asked Lisa, well, okay, so what was that? And what's his story? What's going on there? That question is asked so we can, again, learn how great Johnny is through Lisa. That's the whole point of this entire scene right here. So let me summarize what Lisa's, who, by the way, hates Johnny to death by this point, answers Claudette's question. All right, so Johnny wanted to adopt Denny. It's a real tragedy how many kids out there just don't have any parents. This is Denny's backstory we're doing. Johnny bought Denny an apartment when he turned 18. He's like a father figure to him. He gave Denny his own set of keys to the apartment. So that is why Denny's always around and how he's able to get in, and that's what's going on with Denny, and that is how the situation came to be.
Makes all the sense in the world now.
It definitely answers the question, what does Denny do?
Uh-huh.
And no one has asked another question, which is everyone in this movie is 20 to 25 years old, except for Johnny, who is eternal.
Timeless.
Yeah, so
Undetermined.
why is that? No one's asking that.
Not a bit.
It's the opposite of Bullets and Champagne, where Pamela Bryant is in her 20s and everyone else is old.
Mhm.
Claudette, at this point, having heard the story, she asked about Denny, learns what a great person Johnny is, and immediately shifts into, oh, Lisa, by the way, you talking about Johnny like that lovingly reminds me that you hate him, and can you please not destroy his life?
It's
with what you're
important to
gonna
me, Claudette, also that you like Johnny. I love Johnny. He's like a son to me. There's a lot of that goes on in this
Absolutely.
movie.
And she begs Lisa not to hurt him and says, if you need to leave him, but at least be honest with him about it.
Ugh, this is getting too serious.
At this point, Mike runs back into the room. We get
Oh, good.
part 2 of Mike here. What's he need? Well, I guess he put on his clothes and forgot about his underwear. So he comes back in under the guise of looking for his textbook, grabs that with one arm, and then tries to steal the boxers that he knew exactly where they were in the couch cushions. Problem is, Claudette is seated just over where the underwear is, and Claudette is fast. So she reaches that old lady arm out and snatches those dirty semen-soaked boxers right out of Mike's hands.
Why did she want to do that?
And she fans them out for everyone to see.
They're practically right in front of her face when she does it. And this is the time that Claudette chooses to see the humor in the situation. After being repulsed earlier, now she's laughing.
She's like, I hate it when people borrow sugar, but I love it when they come on their underwear and leave it in your couch. This underwear's bigger than Mike.
I guess that's another Johnny thing. Like, we all wear boxers 4 sizes too big. Still laughing about this disgusting discovery. Claudette, for some reason, tells Lisa she'd be her best friend if she were a burglar. I don't get it.
Because everybody's always coming in and out.
No, because burglars always befriend the people they've burgled.
Burglars always bake cakes.
Burglars are in the market for a new Dell.
Things get real serious here out of nowhere, though, as Claudette tells her daughter she does worry about her, I guess because of the burglar risk or whatever. And then she abruptly leaves, and Lisa collapses into the couch, sighing out loud about what a pill Claudette is.
Okay. This has all been incredible, but I mean, what we're about to talk about next week, just the best part of a movie, the best sequence of scenes in a movie, probably, I guess, ever.
I think that's a fair statement. Fucking crazy.
Yeah, the next scene that we're going to open with next week is, without a doubt, the best acted scene in the movie. I don't know if it's the best overall scene, but it's the best acted scene. And from this point, if you thought the movie was weird, you are going to find that it gets even weirder.
Unsurprisingly, the introduction of a character named Chris-R makes the movie weirder.
So you have that to look forward to next week. We don't want to make this a 9-hour episode. We have trouble not talking too much about The Room. So we're gonna split it here and come back at you next week with some more Room and a lot more Lisa, Claudette, Johnny, Denny, and Chris R.
And Steven.
Yeah.
Sure.
In the meantime, though, go check out Boob Tube Boys on YouTube. Go to Bootu Inc. Van has been making GIFs for these movies, and we're writing little synopses to go alongside them. They are hilarious.
Yeah, it was fun. I did it for Champagne and Bullets for the reason that there are really no Champagne and Bullets GIFs. Now there's a lot. So if you want one, go there. You can get it.
And it's a really fun way to experience the movie. I think anyone listening to this would really get a kick out of it, honestly. The mysterious band Red Dress that does music for this podcast, if you go to its Bandcamp page, they seem to have written another song about The Room. This is the 11th one. This one about a character that'll appear in the next episode. There are more songs that will be appearing online, too. I'm told to mention that by them. It was an anonymous email I received.
That's exciting. There's more coming up than I even know what to do. I'm a little overwhelmed. We have some big things coming, and I kind of feel like I'm sitting on an atomic bomb waiting for it to go off. You guys feel that way at all?
When is the baby due?
How can you do this? You make me sick. How can you do this? You make me sick. What's going on here? Why are you doing this? I don't believe it. You don't understand anything, man. What's going on here? Why are you doing this? I don't believe it. Leave your stupid comments in your pocket. I feel like I'm sitting on an atomic bomb, waiting for it to go. I feel like I'm sitting on an atomic bomb, waiting for it to go. I feel like I'm sitting on an atomic bomb, waiting for it to go. I feel like I'm sitting on an atomic bomb, waiting for it to go. Do you even understand what you're doing? I just made friends with you guys, and now you've gone and messed it up. It's hard for me to connect in my pirate shirt with the buttons undone. How can you do this? You make me sick. How can you do this? You make me sick. When is the baby due? There is no baby. What are you talking about? When is the baby due? There is no baby. What are what? I feel like I'm sitting on an atomic bomb, waiting for it to go.